Good afternoon, everybody. We'll call this June 7th budget work session meeting to order. And I can't remember exactly what we said we'll pick up
At the beginning.
Sound like a great place.
No, Mr. Chairman, Board of Commissioners, we did go through the entire budget at the last meeting. This is budget workshop number 4. We've had 3. There were multiple hours each. We probably spent more than 7 hours on this budget thus far. We're literally going page by page. I did send out, and you do have in your agenda package, the discussion points, things that have been brought up for further discussion and resolution to either add back in or take away from the budget. So the budget as presented, the big document, is the document. And this proposed budget as it was submitted totaled $61.8 million. Then you have 2 pages of possible additions and eliminations that need to be considered and decided if these items should be put in the budget or not. I think that's where we're at. Tonight is budget public hearing number 1 for public comment. And then budget public hearing number 2 is the next commission meeting on June the 21st. And at that meeting, the board should adopt the budget that will go into effect July 1st.
Ray, can I ask you a quick question?
You bet.
On the general fund revenues, the taxes for real property?
Yes.
Are the new property values in that number?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, that number is an estimate of what the values may be this year. So yes, that's why it's an increase. Yes.
Thank you.
Perhaps we could take these discussion points and just go one by one and decide, put them in or take them out. Might be a good place to start.
Sounds good to me.
So a decisive yes or no on each one.
Well, the only thing, if we start at number 1, the only thing we've eliminated so far is the $50,000 for the electric basketball goal. We took anything else out.
That's what just moved it. Minus.
And I believe the Parks and Rec Director would like to address the board on other issues of a budgetary nature.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Again, the new Parks and Rec Director, she came in this midstream, so, she's at a disadvantage to some extent. So I think she would like to ask the board for additional items. That's not in this bulleted list.
The only one I really think I had was that we are, have gone over some numbers and I've talked with the soccer board. This is addressing the soccer complex, and we would like to add about $115,000 in there to actually properly go in and redo the entire complex to where we have the fields up to par where they really need to be, because they are in very bad shape.
When you talk about redo, define that.
We're talking about a new irrigation system, 4 acres of game fields, which is the estimated cost of about $30,000. Sod at a cost of about $75,000, and a turf management annual contract for about $10,000. That could be maybe negotiated a little bit with some of the work our park staff can do, but that would come to about $115,000.
What would the timeline be?
As soon as possible, we get started on that, and hoping to be well within a year that we'd have everything taken care of. This next year will be solely working on that as a priority.
And then on that, of course, I think one of the issues was, overuse or overplaying the field, not getting time to breathe and rotate.
Right, we are having to implement that. We're actually going to probably have to do that with a lot of our parks. All of ball fields have been 24/7, 12 months out of the year. They're showing a lot of wear and tear. And soccer would have to be one of those that would have to actually start playing on the practice side, or practicing on the practice side and staying off the game fields, because they've worn them down to nothing. Along with that, they just haven't been properly maintained.
So if you did this 115 for the soccer complex this year, next year, would you look at having to do that? Moultrie or Pate to kind of rehab those fields?
I will take a look at what Peyton Moultrie are gonna be needing, and I can come back with something at that point, but I do believe we'll have to have something there. They're not as near dire, situation as soccer is. So I don't anticipate that amount, but again, I don't know, it'll take probably a year for me to kind of get a feel for what those fields are making.
And these items are really under number 9, recreation. So that's where they really belong, but community center recreation. So with number 1, the community center, eliminate 50,000 for the electric basketball winch, and then would add 21,000 for repair and maintenance equipment, and add 22 for repairs and maintenance buildings.
So that's 7,415. Not a lot, but okay. And we'll get else. Is there anything else that you see under the recreation that you think, well, now that I have this number, perhaps I could not do that this fiscal year so that I can get these fields done?
Everything that you're seeing here, I have gone over, we actually do have a need for them. It is a desperate need for everything about this.
Immediate need. Immediate need.
Yes, ma'am. It has to be this year. We just have a lot of stuff that has not been done.
Any other questions?
So that's really only adding 65,000 back to the total budget between community center and recreation. Because we're taking out 50,000, subtract that from your 115, you're talking 65,000. Which you're actually adding 115 to the recreation side, but you deducted 50,000 from the community center side.
Plus, there's a whole list down there at number 9.
No, that's already there. And we're taking it, she wants to add in 115, it's not there, we're taking out 50, so really she's adding in 65.
Yes, plus
21
all
and
of these.
21, right.
Yeah, we've already done all that. That's what I'm saying, they took that into account on the back where you look at your possible net addition.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they already took that in, so we're actually only talking about adding 65,000 because of that, so we're taking out 50.
And these fields, I mean, you know, I don't know if you guys have been, but, you know, getting a lot of stuff from the parents and showing and getting pictures and everything else from the Sandburgs, that has been a huge problem, you know, with the kids and everything else, playing the tournaments, you know, playing at the soccer field too, so that's a huge issue. That is a big concern with all the, you know, the parents and not just, you know, the soccer board itself, so.
Any other questions or comments? Anything else for us?
That's all that I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So number 1 to 9,
Where's the repairs and maintenance buildings going for a community center? For the 22,000, where are they actually gonna put the building?
no, that's repairs and maintenance
Oh,
to the
that's
existing buildings.
Okay, so we're not adding a new building.
No, it's repairing what we have. Or increasing repairs to the community center. It's like 11 years old now, and it's in constant use and needs a lot of maintenance. And the recreation, we're adding more parks, we're also trails, Ellis Park, adding more acreage, you need more mowers, tractors, maintenance. Is, you know, with a growing department, a growing number of acreage, you just need more of things.
And just TLC on a lot of things that we really haven't kept up with over the years.
TLC never hurts.
My opinion is to leave her request as she presented in number 1 and number 9, plus the 115. That's my opinion.
I'll say that.
Any other thoughts or comments on the board? No?
Do we go number two?
Yeah, I'll say number two. So for the district attorney at number two, we added $32,878 for salary and benefits to increase the salary of the vacant ADA from 54,000, roughly 54,000 to 80,000.
Didn't he ask for a range?
Yeah, he did ask for a range.
It is.
54
It's
to 80.
Yeah, 54 to 80.
We'd have to put 80 in the budget, but he would try to work
Yeah,
within that
has to
range.
be, yeah, and I think
a discretionary value.
there is a range there, that he's gonna have to be able to.
That's right. I think we have a new district attorney. I think we want a good lawyer here. I think we need to allow him that discretion.
Are we gonna raise the other attorney we already have here?
I don't know what the other attorneys.
He makes the 54,000.
Yeah.
Well,
What,
to be honest,
I
sorry.
don't know that the other attorney does make 54.
Well, that's what he said, what he
Oh,
did.
okay.
That's what he said when he was here talking about it. So you gonna try hiring one, make it higher than the one we already got.
I don't know. I just know, I don't know of any attorneys that would start out at 54,000.
Well, apparently there's one.
Must be.
So why didn't you bring that up for one of his budgetary requirements?
Well, he just took over office. As he said when he came, he'd been there for 3 days and just looked at it, and he was only talking about the vacant one, and the question was asked about the current one, and he said, well, that makes the same, we may have to move up, because the current one's retired from somewhere else. So he may not want to move up or have a salary increase, but he might. I mean, we're in that day and age where everybody wants a salary increase, so it's inflation.
All I know is that's what he asked for.
Right.
And so. But we ought to give him that discretion.
Yeah, I think he needs that discretionary ability to be able to do it, because right now, just in the professional side of it, I know from the engineering side, it's very competitive. And trying to find somebody that you can get that's gonna be an asset.
Yeah, I think we've been there as a range also. Okay.
Ready for number three, the coroner.
Yes. So, number three on the corner, there's a request to add $29,270 to include salary and benefits to increase the coroner's salary from $12,000 to $35,000. Anybody have any comments on that?
This salary is set by the state.
Local legislation.
Local legislation.
Yes.
And the reason for the request was based on the bill that did not get out committee.
Or
It
the
hasn't been
request
passed
was basically asked because the coroner hasn't received a salary increase from 12,000 in many years. So as a way to get him up at all past the 12,000, we would use the sample of that legislation that did not pass as a guide.
So if the salary is set by local legislation, how can we increase it without local legislation?
Give us something.
Maybe we need to ask that question. I'm not against a salary increase. I'm not sure that I'm for up to 35,000, but from 12,000 to 35,000, which is a $30,000 increase. But I think we need to know if it's set by local legislation, can we just arbitrarily change that?
I agree with that. I think that should be.
Well, I think the request last year was to introduce local legislation
Yeah.
in the upcoming General Assembly to go from X to Y and make that 12,000 a different number.
Yeah,
So that could probably still be on the table.
yeah.
So go to next General Assembly and ask to change that local legislation.
But I think the local legislation automatically goes to the 35, right? Isn't that what the local
The
legislation is
current
asking
local,
for?
I mean, the current
To propose.
proposal is statewide, not just local.
Correct.
So if it goes statewide, we'll pay whatever.
The statewide thing
General
says,
Assembly
Right.
And it's been
approves.
in the General Assembly for several years and it just doesn't seem to get any traction. So
They have a strong lobby. I'm sure they'll continue to do it. But I think we need to ask that question, would it have to be local legislation? And then, I'm just not sure that 39,000 is the amount.
I have to agree with you on that.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know that I can support that.
Okay, we'll check on that. All right. On to number 4, facility maintenance. So there's a request to add roughly $13,000 to reclass the assistant director from grade 18 to 20. Also to add $6,300 to reclass a lead tech from grade 12 to 14. And then also to add roughly $8,500 to reclass the FAC 4 from grade 8 to a 10. Any comments on this? Questions?
I think that Jamie was right in that his department was at a disadvantage because he wasn't here during salary study. I don't understand why assistant directors in other departments were put on a 20 and his are 18, unless it's the same reason that he was put below, and it was because of education level.
That was 3 years ago. I'm a little foggy in that.
But we did move him up to what the other directors were making, and I am okay with moving these up to what, if this is comparable to assistant director, lead tech, and I don't know what FAC stands for.
That's the building, I don't know how to classify him. The one that cleans the buildings and helps maintain the courthouse and stuff.
Okay,
And before you do that, you better make sure that all the other.
that's what I'm saying, are they all, that's what I'm saying, I'm not opposed to it if they are all with the same classification,
Right.
have that grade.
Because we had this discussion with the directors, trying to standardize it.
And you need to figure out what the other assistant directors, if they're all graded at 20 or if some of them are already at 18.
I think Jamie said they were, that the other assistant directors were at a 20.
I do not recall, but I think there's maybe 2 more. That's an 18.
In other departments?
Yeah. But, my opinion on that is, which I think they all ought to be equal, but them departments have that ability to stand before you and say the same thing. I just wanted the opportunity that I didn't get to put my people in the right class that they should have been in the right category. And that was my purpose for coming before the board. Nothing against the other departments, but I feel like that's their responsibility.
But there are assistant directors that are at 20, and there are lead techs at 14.
Yes, ma'am, there are lead techs. All the lead techs, I think, were at 14.
How many assistant directors are at a 20? Randy?
I do not know. It's just like we keep revisiting the CBLG thing, that happened 3 years ago. I'm losing a lot of the detail, but we're met with that every single year. And
One of the assistant directors that was at a 20 is no longer the assistant director. She's now the recreation director. And I knew that one was at a 20. Well, now that's gotta be filled. So you.
I had a classification of a 20.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, it had a classification of 20. It could have a classification of 18 now. Depending on whatever you do, since you've got, or she does, hiring whoever she's hiring. I'm saying, we need to figure out how many more. If not, we're gonna be revisiting this again and again and again. The reason we did all the directors at one time, is so we didn't have to do it but once.
But the CBLG, that was before my time, but the definition that was classified up underneath the pay grade, was there any other sub-level between us, like, let's say, director 1, 2, 3, assistant director 1, 2, 3? That's the only thing I can think of between a pay difference in itself.
don't remember, I don't have study in front of me, I don't
I
remember.
don't either.
Well, you know, with Jamie's, it was level of education.
Yeah.
Although he has a bachelor's degree, it wasn't.
Well, with Jamie's and Bobby's,
Yeah,
because they came and spoke together for
That's
the
right.
department heads, and it was about education. So the department heads came together and spoke as a group because of the education. And that, you're right, it was about education. Now this, I'm not sure why one's at 20, one's at 8, I don't know why that is.
That would revisit that study.
Yeah, I think we need to revisit that.
We were gonna, I was gonna put in next year's budget, you know, another CBRG study to study it again. Why? Because you have entry-level folks at McDonald's, Target, Starbucks, making $15 an hour, off the street, no skills, or minimal skills. We have CDL dump truck drivers and garbage truck drivers not making $15 an hour. So there's an inequity building up, and I think it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. So I'm thinking, probably maybe this time next year, we need to put in 25, 30,000 to do another CBRG study based on the current market rates, which are fluctuating greatly right now.
I had a local restaurant owner tell me that he was paying dishwashers $13 an hour and couldn't get one, couldn't get anybody to take it.
Exactly. But you know, entry-level positions, $15 an hour in this area, not in big cities, in the Columbus metro area. And we don't have a lot of people, been here for years and years with skills and licenses and certificates, not making $15 an hour. So we thought the CBRG study was a massive increase 3 years ago. It's going to be a bigger increase now because the economy and the dynamics of the economy is changing, and we need to change with it. Maybe it's this time maybe this year we need to do this study, and not wait a year. I think it's only going to get stranger by the month.
Well, perhaps if you're thinking that way, we would wait on these until we get a new study and see.
I would like to proceed with going on with my recommendation because we might not get that study for 2 years or so.
If the board gives me $30,000 in this year's budget, we can start that process as soon as CBRG is available. Because I think they did a great job last time. It's getting a little stale, the results of that study, because the dynamics of the marketplace is changing.
And if it's like anything else, we'll be 2 years down the road, being able to get a study. That's just the way the market is right now. Everybody's behind, everybody's scrambling. So I would still like my recommendation to be considered.
I'm just worried if we do a study right now, things are so dicey, is that study gonna be good a year from now, or do you wait a little longer to see if things stabilize?
It's fluid, definitely.
27.7.
I'd like to get the information about the other assistant directors and just see exactly what those grades are, how many are 18, how many are 20, and see what the differences are. Right now, I'm just looking at numbers on here, I'd like to have something compared to the other departments in those positions.
How long would that take to find out exactly how many you have as assistant directors sitting at 18 compared to the 20?
In about 6 members.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go on to the next one.
All right, on to number 5, information technology. The request was to add back $53,000 salary and benefits for a new full-time IT technician. Half of this new position will be outsourced to Meriwether County for a net salary and benefit expense of $26,500. Meriwether County covered the other portion of
confident they will cover the other portion?
I've already had meetings with them, in fact, they're waiting on your decision.
How many IT, or how many people are in your department?
2.
To cover the entire county, all of our equipment, internet,
We
printers.
support over 300 users.
And this is completely tier 1 based, right?
Yes.
So what kind of education are you looking for?
Customer service. They gotta have a good attitude. I can teach the rest.
Maybe some certificates in IT.
That would be a bonus.
What do you think for like a top TA?
A help desk technician, somebody who can walk somebody through setting up a printer. And then making a schedule if it's beyond that.
So fundamentals.
Yes.
Kind of work on the telephone,
And again, we talked about not having them travel during the day. So they would go to work, whether here or Meriwether, and they would leave from here or Meriwether to go home. Therefore, we wouldn't pay any travel.
Correct.
They would not travel during the day between the two counties.
Correct.
For example, Monday and Tuesday, they would come from their home to here and go back at 5. And the Wednesdays, they would just report to Meriwether County Thursday and Friday. So it'd be that kind of schedule. But there's not to say that in rare, very rare events, they might need to go back and forth. That'd be extremely rare.
Then we would pay the mileage in the middle of the day.
No, they would just probably leave, clock out, and go over there and clock in over there. So I don't see any mileage. And they would be using their own personal vehicles.
Well,
Because of the rare,
you don't pay people to go to work or go home from work, but if you require travel during the day, then you pay mileage.
But the way we see it is they clock out of this job and go to a separate another job.
Because who would pay the mileage?
That's why I'm getting at is,
Who would pay the mileage?
But those are the extremely rare situations, if it ever happens at all.
it'll happen with IT. It will happen with IT.
that being said, that's the reason we're working with Meriwether. I know the director over there, he and I have a working relationship. We help each other out over the phone remotely already.
I can see leaving that one in there, seems like a growing area.
So 5 is a yes or no?
I'd agree.
Okay.
I guess we can give it a trial run and see if it works.
Yep.
All right, on to number 6, non-departmental was to add 48,000 for property and liability insurance to reflect the actual bill. Yeah, salary, we got a choice on that one.
Back in March, we did an estimate. I was a little bit light. Everything's going up.
All right, on to number 7, the prison was to add back $65,000 to replace some boiler room pipes. Seems like it's
I believe I was the one that asked that question. Removing that, I think we can continue to leave that out. If the pipes burst in the middle of the year, we'll have to fix them, but it could last another 2 or 3 years. That might be one of the ones we could save on. But I don't think it's far off in our future.
right.
How do
Yeah, I
you
guess
feel
my
about
only
it?
concern with it, if it does break, then
Yep.
you're down, so.
You're down.
I'm trying to, if you are down, trying to. Jamie, that wasn't something you could fix yourself, was it? Is that outsourced on that, or?
No, sir, it would have to be outsourced because they're like 3-inch pipe, copper piping, and
Yeah, that's tools.
county has no tools.
Do you think they're gonna go out any day?
It's been there a long time.
Yeah, first of all, you can't predict that. You can't predict that. I mean, they're
I
talking
did-
pipes, they could last
I didn't
another
predict
5 years.
I didn't predict the library whole AC system to go out. Only being 4 years old. But it has, and it's ended up costing us right now at $30,000 and probably going to end up costing about $15,000 more. So, I mean, those are just like things that happen. That we're way over budget with, but I mean, they've got to be fixed. So it'd be the same way if we get a leak,
We're gonna fix it.
we're gonna have to fix it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'd go either way with that one.
I agree with you.
Take it down.
I agree.
All right.
So 7 is a no. But we'll put it in next year's budget.
Yeah,
And hopefully,
just hope it lasts.
On to number 8, with Public Works was to add back $150,000 for a replacement dump truck, and also to add back $104,000 for 2 replacement F-350 flatbed trucks. And I think from our discussion that dump truck was in the worst condition.
I can agree with keeping that one in.
And maybe
Take
take out
Take out
the
2,
2
350.
flatbeds. So we could add back $150,000 for one.
But then again, you gotta think about getting in line, you know.
Right.
I don't know when we'll get there. Take that one and take out one.
And number 9 was recreation.
Yeah, we did,
And number 10 on the volunteer fire departments, there's a request to add $422,000 to capital outlays for a new fire training facility, and also to add $29,250 to increase the operational staff from roughly 18,000 to almost 21,000.
And I'll go ahead and say, I've already talked to the fire department several times on this, to be able to try to discuss on this building. The total that we're looking at right now is about a $600,000 building. You're talking about, I mean, in today, if you go out in Harris County trying to buy a house, we can buy a fully furnished house, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, completely finished for that. And trying to figure out exactly what is a necessity, these guys need it. It's a have to have, they've got to have a training facility. But I don't think $600,000 is, where we need to be. I think we need to sit down, come up with a compromise on it. And I have talked to several of the chiefs and trying to figure out exactly how to do this. And it should have been done a long time ago. When they first brought it up, it should have been passed, it should have been done. They've already had their building and be operational. I'm willing for us to put more money into this and try to figure out a compromise. And I think if we can find something for $400,000 or less, I think I can be okay with that. But we need to sit down and be proactive and make sure that this gets done and gets put into place this year for them to have a building.
400,000?
400,000 or less, yes.
I agree, I think something needs to be done too, but I don't know.
I agree too. I know they need something, but 400,000 is still more.
It is a lot of money, but it's better than 600. It's better than 600.
I like Randy's idea of getting an engineer to design us what we need. We might spend a little more money up front, but we might save some money at the end.
If we wanted to do the 400,000, we should have took the first bid that they told us not to take.
Well, I think that's where we need to sit down and try to figure out exactly what is a have to have.
What we have to have is they need to build it.
They do. Now, does it need to be red iron? I'm not a structural engineer by no means, but I think we
I
need to do
mean, they need to have bathrooms, showers, for men and female, and they need to have a conference room. And it's hard to get behind $600,000 for that.
Yeah.
that. And
Can I approach?
okay.
I'm Bill Zucker, I'm the chief in Catala. I was nominated, I guess, by the chiefs to come up and talk to y'all. And I have been talking, Commissioner Irons and I have been talking about it. And we agree, $600,000 is absorbent. It's hard. We started this project several years ago. We could have done it for a lot less, but that's water under the bridge. We can't do it now. I don't know what the answer is. Maybe y'all could put something in the budget and maybe we could try and fit it in. The building we spec'd out, I believe y'all have seen the specs, is very basic. It's basically what you talked about, Commissioner Grant. It's a meeting room, it's a kitchenette, and it's showers. In today's world, one of the largest long-term killers of firefighters is cancer. So if we don't have a place for people to clean up, there's the possibility of taking it home. And also, if it's there and they don't use it, they can't come back on us because we didn't offer it. So that's a big push for us. I don't have an answer. But since I was fortunate enough to get up here, there was something else I wanted to bring up. We had a wonderful meeting with the county manager and Mr. Chastain. But unfortunately, two other things, and I don't know if they're on the list or not, were left out of the budget that are very important to the fire department. We were asking for, and I don't know if this is the right time to do it or not, but I'm up at the podium, so I'm going to proceed. We were asking for the county to take on the cancer policy for the cities. All the rural departments are covered by the county, and we'd like them to take on the cancer policy. I do not have the cost of that. And the other thing was we had requested $250,000 a year so we could put a new fire truck in every fire station every other year. So every 20 years, a fire department would get a new truck.
And correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't this already in production several years ago? I'm not sure. That actually had it on a rotation every other year to be able to help.
Many years ago, back in 2000, I don't know if y'all know the history, back in 2000, starting with splash money, we bought 5 fire trucks, 99, 2000, and that's what catapulted the Harris County from basically the dark ages to the future. After that, they started buying one truck. The initial plan was one truck every year to put them in the fire departments. That kind of fell by the wayside due to budgeting constraints and other things. And this is when trucks were $300,000. Now they're up over 500, 450, 550 for a basic commercial truck, not a fancy truck, not a custom truck. And that kind of fell by the wayside, and it took time. But every 2 years, every 3 years, there was a truck bought and put in by the county to assist the fire departments. So that's another reason we're here and asking. And as far as the training building goes, we definitely need something. I wish we could have, we had a couple years ago, but we couldn't. We were blocked from that. And now we're where we're at. Maybe y'all could put some money in and we could try and work within the constraints of that money. I don't know. Like I said, I don't have an answer.
I don't think we've discussed this. I know I brought it up a couple times. I think we've talked multiple times about trying to get back on that rotation for helping you guys with apparatus and truck, whatever it is that you guys deem necessary for whatever department. I think it's something definitely that we need to get back into. I mean, that's my opinion on that. And I've brought it up several times. It's not a secret. But how do we get there? And what's y'all's opinion on that?
I think it's a perfect SPLOST project.
That's how we bought them all last time. The SPLOST was passed, and we bought 20 fire trucks.
10.
10 fire trucks.
10 fire trucks.
So, and people love to vote for SPLOST for new fire trucks.
Yes.
It's a great selling point. The SPLOST will end in 2025, so we're about halfway there, so we still got a few years to go.
Make a list of all these things that we say that's a great SPLOST.
And checking it twice,
Okay.
and everybody's nodding.
Yeah.
Would y'all be agreeable with that? To add that to back into the SPLOST?
What's that?
Would y'all be agreeable with that, to add it back into the SPLOST?
I guess we'd have to be. I mean, we provide a service to the county at a minimal expense to the county, looking at the budgets of the other departments. The fire department gets about 1.5% of the budget. EMS gets about 4.5%. Sheriff gets about 6%. And if we had to pay a fire department, and I'm just going to brag a little bit, the salaries we cover to run a fire department in this county, just salary, would be about $2.5 million in the budget for the fire department. We run somewhere between 10 and 20 million. And right now you're getting it for less than $1 million. So, I don't feel guilty coming up and asking because we do a good job.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you get any other information on that cancer policy for the city or anything?
I actually do, because when Nancy was here, she worked a lot with the cancer policy information, and I just looked, actually, cities are required as of January 1st of 2018 to provide their eligible employees and their volunteer firefighters in the cities with that policy. So they're supposed to already be doing that already. And I know that there are some of the volunteers that work for the other areas that also work for paid fire departments are supposed to be covered under their paid fire department, but I don't know whether or not those cities actually have that in place or not.
I feel like they do have it in place, but I don't know what the, premiums are.
Can we get that information?
So that's-
We are 10, I don't know if this will help, but we are 10 individual entities that contract to the county, but we all work together. So just because somebody's working in Waverly Hall or Hamilton or Pine Mountain, they all come outside of their cities to help everybody else in the county. Nobody, even though we have our territories, we're not bound within our territories if somebody else needs help. And even on a standard structure fire or a fire alarm, 3 departments automatically get brought in. So we're one big happy family. Well,
Most of your firefighters do not even live in our city limits. House Bill 146 requires that the cities provide that coverage for their.
No, I can understand Shiloh and Hall, Pine Mountain, Hamilton. I don't know how we do West Point unless we did it on the.
we haven't even, I hate to say this, we haven't even brought West Point into the mix. We were talking about all the volunteer departments.
So, I see. So the volunteer in the city departments.
Yes, ma'am. Hamilton, Waverly Hall, Shiloh, Pine Mountain.
So we can ask the cities what their premiums are for that.
And then your contribution from the cities to go with cancer policy. To cover their fair share.
Along with the unincorporated areas.
We cover the volunteer fire departments that are in unincorporated areas county.
Yeah, we can get over for this one. Cancer policy, if you read.
So is that a sort
So back to the training facility, what do y'all want to do?
And the cancer insurance, we got budget $22,000, just
And what,
$22,000 for the cancer insurance for the volunteer fire departments. I guess with the employees, with the firefighters in the unincorporated roster.
it's for all the people that are on our roster.
Right.
What was your thought on the training facility?
Yeah, I said, I don't know what to say about the training facility. I think 600,000 is a lot, too much. We had, how much do we have in the budget? 100 and
160.
166, 667. That's plus 19 funds that the volunteer fire department saved up to get this fire training facility.
And that's the reason why I said that. I
The money was distributed over 6 or 7 years, and it worked out to be about $16,000 a year. And every fire department gave up 1 year of their splosh money to forward the training center. Unfortunately, that was before prices went haywire with everything. I know you've graciously given us, if it passes, you've graciously given us an increase on the stipend to, I think it's about $20,000 a department. But just to put that in perspective, I talked to a fire chief the other day. His fuel budget is going to be $10,000 next year, or it has been this year. 10,000 in 12 months will be $10,000, and then that leaves us $10,000 plus whatever we can beg, borrow, and I won't say the other word, find or raise. And it's just like everybody else. It's just gotten more difficult for us. Everything's gone up 200% and 300%. And then you've still got firefighters that now we're paying $5 a gallon to put fuel in our vehicles to even just get to the station or get to the call. So, and that's just on us.
Thank you. I think we definitely increase the stipend on the training facility, I think it's time to do something.
But it's definitely
I don't
time
know
to do
the exact dollar amount, but how we keep taking good exploring.
In my opinion, I think minimum we should max that dollar for dollar for a raise. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
And if you do that, that sets it at about, let's just say that's 340,000. That's the reason why I said 450.
Spread the longer we wait, the more expensive it's gonna get.
It is, and that's the reason why I really think we need to sit down with our fire departments and figure out exactly what they, sit down and see what's acceptable to them to be able to do it. Is it state built? I understand that there's some concerns about that. Is it, is it a metal frame building? What is it? What can we do to, be able to meet them halfway? Because they've got to have it. If we keep waiting, it's going to be astronomical. It's going to be over $1 million.
So if it's bid out, is that something the board can do? Can be a
We've
part of
done it.
that process?
But here's the problem.
It's not a bid process. It's getting to figure out
It is a
exactly.
bid process because we.
And I'm not talking about us being, I'm not talking about us being in the bid process whatsoever. What I'm saying is sitting down with them and figuring out what those dynamics need to be on minimalistic to what is the red iron side that we already know now. What is the minimalistic side of it, and then be able to bid out from there. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Work on changing the specs.
Okay. Every time I do a building project, and I've done many of them over my career, the first, and the most recent one is the public works facility. It follows the same process. You hire an architect to do an program. They meet with the end users and say, hey, what do you need? I need this, 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 that, next to this, next to that. I need this, that, and the other on this piece of property. So the engineer will come in, listen to the end users, program together, and present a conceptual building on a site with ingress, egress, driveways, that kind of thing. Then, based on the engineer's, the current conditions, he says this would be it's an X square foot building. It'd be cost effective. It was stick built or pre-engineered metal or this, that, and the other. Based on his experience, the architect would determine a market range, which is the best way to build this project, how to deliver the construction process, and I do that on every project. This one doesn't have any of that. So,
This is important.
plus it's not a really county project, but we're helping it along.
Right.
It'd be more than happy to. But on the agenda tonight is a courthouse project, a waterworks building project, and a solid waste building project. Very successful projects. They're coming in right at or slightly over budget, and the budget was prepared years ago. So these are successful projects because they have gone through a successful process that this one did not do. So if we're going to build a building, it's got a lot of money into it, I would suggest going through a process with an architect to prepare a program, do a site plan, do some surveys, talk with the end users, tell us how we should build this project for cost efficiency, and that's the hallmark of a successful project. And we would only bid out once, not bid out twice or 3 times.
And then if you do construction management at risk, you can do some quality engineering.
So value engineering is part of any project at any construction building. This is a simple building.
And guaranteed maximum.
Or no, this is a simple building. It can be simply done. It can be quickly done. If it followed a process that all the other ones have done and they have been successful. I think it would be a failure on my part if I had to go bid out twice a big project. Because if it's not done right the first time and having to go rebid it, that's just saying the process was a failure. Take that personally.
Have we heard anything back from the principal? We know we're going to talk to the principal about the last bid. You ever hear anything back from?
No.
We were gonna tell them,
Right,
if we were gonna
right.
accept the bid based on this.
Right.
Yeah, they were waiting on us to be able to.
Yeah, I like it from checking on the pricing of it, so guarantees that we get them still building.
Oh, I understand.
But if the board wants this to be a county-led, official county project, we can go through this process and get it done. If it's going to be a hybrid project, then I don't know what's going to happen.
And I think that's what we want to do.
I do too. That way we can get moving forward and get these details and build that.
So, having said all that, what's the dollar amount we're gonna put in?
I mean, I'll make a recommendation on that.
Well, I think that we need to figure out, if we put the dollar amount in to do, get the architect to come in and tell us what cost efficient, then you come back and you put dollar amount in.
Yeah,
We already know we got
Put something in the budget.
$170,000.
We gotta put something in there for the budget stuff.
We got $170,000 in there, right?
How many square feet is this building?
24.
24 square feet. Right now, 2,400 square feet times 250. There's your 600,000. It keeps coming back to the. I think you can build this building on existing land for probably $600,000. That's just a good budget estimate on existing land with minimal connections to roads, minimal connections to water and sewer. That's already there. You
What's
just
our low
extend it.
bid in consideration? What is our low bid?
It's not really good.
And plus the architects would charge probably $20,000 type dollars to go through the process of program, survey, engineering, construction documents, bidding, and construction administration. So that would be probably, I would say $625,000, $650,000 would be a really good budget estimate for this type of facility. Then minus the $166,000 that the fire department is contributing, that would be the county's portion. That's how I would do it. But the end user would be in full charge of how it's designed and what they need. But we could go through this process and then I need about I'll probably need $650,000. Minus $166,000.
Which is kind of where we're at.
So that's a good confirmation and verification of, that's what this thing's gonna cost.
Well, that's doing it with those specs we already have. And you can do a stick building, I bet it don't cost that much. And you're talking bathrooms, showers, and a conference room. And a stick building, hey, people live in houses, they're stick building. And our firefighters make sure that they save them if they do catch on fire. So what's wrong with the stick building?
Nothing wrong with mine, nothing wrong.
We just feel that the concern is that if this building has to have a 50, 75-year lifespan, and I know, but we just felt like with the abuse that it might get, we just felt better doing a metal structure.
I'm living in a house that's over 100 years old, and I've had a whole lot of people come through that house, and it's gotten a lot of abuse. And it's still here, and it's still rocking and rolling. And I've replaced the roof, and I replaced those stuff, and it was stick built back then by, carpenters who knew what they were doing. Hopefully whoever builds this is just stick built and know what they're doing, because we're talking bathroom, showers, and a conference room. My point is, I want y'all to have the building, but we gotta figure out a way to get you the building, so it's gotta be a compromise somewhere. And, $600,000 for bathroom, showers, and conference room, I mean, even the school doesn't even do that, and they do a lot of crazy stuff.
I didn't say that.
I say it, I work there, I'm just saying,
The school has deep pockets and we have none.
Yeah, and the deep pockets of the schools are the same pockets the county has. It's the same people, except school gets more money than we do. If we did an architect and came out and it was a stick-built building, that would probably last at least 50 years or more.
Because the architect would determine based on market conditions, is it for this kind of building, this size, this use, is a stick-built building more appropriate? Is a pre-engineered metal building more appropriate? Is a modular building more appropriate?
He may come in and use, instead of wooden 2x4s, he may use metal 2x4s. It doesn't have to be all the way run in or all the way the other.
Because they have their, they have the pulse of the construction market. They know what would be a better and more efficient cost delivery method or construction delivery method based on this size and use of a building. So I think getting professionals in here to help us get to where we need to be, and if this is an official county project, then we can start tomorrow.
Sounds like a safe bet to get it done there.
That way we get moving forward. What's y'all's thought?
I think we need to get the architect in here and do it. I think that we're just gonna go round and round.
Yeah.
Until we get somebody that has some expertise on this.
Well, we heard the first specs were drawn on a napkin.
Right, that's what I'm saying. We need to
We
get
could bid
somebody.
that, and then the second ones I understand were more specific, but, and there's nothing wrong with that. My house was built all on a napkin, but you know, the public wasn't paying for it.
And aren't we building a building down at Everly Park, Randy?
We just finished building a pavilion, an open-air pavilion, 20 by 40. Private company did most of the work, $44,000. Just for a 20 by 40 open-air pavilion with a concrete slab as a floor and a metal roof. Now we're going to build the same type of building with a restroom in it. That's why Jamie is going to be really busy this summer and can't do anything else, because he'll be building that pavilion with the restrooms. The maintenance facility he built, Jamie built inmate cruise, turned out really nice.
Very nice.
It's a 30 by 40 enclosed with a restroom. 60,000?
We're right at 60,000.
So about 60, 62 for a 40 by 30 enclosed restroom, nice, really nice facility for 60, 62. Could Jamie do this? Yeah, but I'll have him doing 50 other things right now. And I can't afford to have him stuck on a project for months and months and months. He'll be helping me with the courthouse renovation project, the waterworks building, the solid waste building, the EMS building, and the LG Park buildings. So we're all wearing many hats and stripes. But basically, if the budget could be, say 650 minus 167, if the budget could be 485. 485 plus the 166 is a 650.
How long will the project look? By the time we get an engineer involved, architect involved, to get back to probably still fitting this year's budget?
If we start now, we can probably have it in June, sometime next summer. Yeah, easy. This fiscal year, yes. Yes.
Then when they turn into a county project, have an engineer with it. Well, I'm just saying, officially, move that direction.
And I would need, to make it realistic, I need 485. So the 45 of the county funds, plus the 166 of the volunteer fire funds, there's your 650 total project cost.
Every time you speak, it keeps going up.
I'm rounding.
Which goes to show you, we should have took the first bid we got, we'd be under that.
But that was the one designed on a napkin, Ron. So how many change orders
Right.
would we have had? Don't know.
Yeah, you're right.
And most of the time, JCO is usually a factor like that, their job helps everybody.
Okay.
Is that 485 gonna include the architect?
Yes.
485 would include getting an architect?
Yes. And we're talking about funding sources. The funding source that comes to mind is just general fund reserve. Because plus 19 is tapped. I can't think of it yet.
So instead of adding 422, you want us to add 485? So you want to add another 63,000.
The volunteer fire department's want you to add the 483,000.
No, if we turn it into a county project, you're the county manager, then that's what you said.
If
That's
the
it.
board wants me to do this, I'll do it ASAP, but I gotta have some resources. And that resources is 483.
Put it in there, see what we get when we come back.
Right. That's not
When we
necessarily
see the
saying you're
whole
gonna spend
total
that.
budget.
That's not saying you're gonna spend that.
We will spend it if we approve that project. But what I'm saying is put it in there and let's see if when it adds all of this up, we can see where we are.
So 380, what did I say, 393?
485.
I had to see that.
450%.
Oh, they're 650.
So total is 650.
I meant 650 plus the 166.
Minus the 166.
All right, now, so that brings us to the stipend.
Yes.
So,
That was minimal interest in that.
Yeah,
They don't.
to 2841.
2018, 182,
yeah, from 20,000, was it 29,249?
Okay, let's move on.
So 10 is okay, 483, and keep it at 20,840. Okay, page 10.
All right. So on to number 11. All elected officials, the DA, the sheriff, the coroner, tax commissioner, BOC, magistrate court, probate court, clerk of superior court, superior court. The request was to add the 5.5% county COLA to the elected official's salary in addition to the state mandated COLA of $5,000 or select a higher COLA amount.
I don't think you can select the higher COLA amount. I don't think you can tell the governor you don't want his, can you?
You would make up the difference.
Right. Plus, when you start giving constitutional officers more or less than the state allotment in their formula, it's a slippery slope on when you can, or if you can ever take it away. So once you start down that road, it's going to be very slippery to manage. And you can see in the little chart I made, the state COLAs versus the county COLAs.
So most likely they would get the county COLA every year if the state doesn't pay the COLA. Well, I see you have the Board of Commissioners listed and you've got the word all there, but I don't think any of us have advocated for this particular item. And I think when you run for office, you know what the pay is. If you even ask, I don't think some of us ever even knew until we were sitting in office. I didn't. So,
And if we knew what the plan was, we probably wouldn't.
I didn't know there was any pay. I didn't think. Okay, but, and I know they didn't run for the pay either. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying, there is an amount that you get, and in most cases, when elected officials get an increase, it begins with the next election, not with the current ones in office. Or at least that's what I've seen.
When you get reelected, you will get a higher pay, but it's not like the COLA. The state has said $5,000, if I'm not, is that right? Yeah. the state just said, like, we'll take 5, we don't need 5.5 to do it.
So,
If you look at where it says the higher COLA amount, only 2 of the 5 elected officials, not counting commissioners, because I can tell you right now, I don't want the county's 5.5% COLA. But of the other 5 elected officials, 3 of them, by getting the $5,000, is getting a higher raise percentage than the 5.5 COLA. Only 2 would actually get less than our 5.5 COLA. So you'd end up giving 2 elected officials the 5.5 or making up the difference for the county COLA, and the other 3 wouldn't get anything at all. So they're already getting over the 5.5% based off the $5,000. If you look at the percent, the $5,000 going to each elected official, it's 4.5% for the sheriff, 6.75% for probate, 6.5% for magistrate, 5.25% for superior clerk, and 6.5% for the tax commission. You know, so if you're going on what they said are selected or higher amount, then now you're talking about 2 might and 3 might not. And we know they're getting the governor's $5,000.
I think we created a supplement that we don't know if that we might not want to sustain, and yet our hands will be tied, and because it would be called supplement and not a COLA, if the information that we received is correct.
Right.
And on that same note, if you look at those elected officials, and then you have the board of commissioners, the only elected official that's not getting the 5.5% COLA or the $5,000 from the governor would be the coroner. He's not getting anything. So if you know, I know I'm going back to him, if we're gonna do, you know, whatever we're gonna do, the county might want to think about at least giving him $5,000 like all the other elected officials. That bumped him from 12,000 to 50, well, I could say that wasn't bad, 17,000.
Yeah, I said I don't mind giving him an increase, but I just think that amount
Yeah.
is too much.
Well, I was saying, if you do the 5,000, that would put him at 17,000, because he's not getting either one.
So let's find out if we can do that without it being local legislation, and then figure out that.
And here's what the attorney is saying. Counties are authorized but not required to provide local supplements to coroner's inquest addition to minimum salary provided by the state or local law. But once given, it cannot be reduced or eliminated during any term of office.
That coroners are all elected officials.
That's specifically the coroner. But, yeah, so when you go down this road of salary, elected officials, state rules, state population, it gets confusing, it gets messy, it gets cumbersome.
And sometimes unfair.
And so the state addresses every constitutional officer differently. You know, the coroners are treated differently than magistrates, they're treated differently than probate, treated differently than the courts and sheriff.
The conversation totals to me between the coroner and everybody else that we're talking to is totally different. I mean, from the last in itself.
I say we leave it alone,
Until,
just not do it. And we can find out if the coroner has to be by local legislation, because this is not local legislation, this is state law. Coroners is by local legislation.
Yes, sir.
Did you just read that that's the minimum? The local legislation is the minimum?
You can give us,
I think the law you just read said that there is a minimum and could not be changed from there. And that's what I was looking at the approach. The 12,000 base salary, I really don't know where that came from. But that is what was there. That, I don't think any reasonable law would say you're gonna be frozen there forever just because we passed it. But that would be the minimum salary, if I understood what Randy just read, for the position in Harris County in the park. And then each corner would be able to grow, if you will. Because if that salary had not been in place today, right now, I should say, taking in the years of service, the COLA numbers that have been put in there, I'd be doing an average of 50 calls, which we talked about that. That's not even half of what we've been at. But doing an average of 50 calls, that would be 18,000 coming up. Had I followed that, had the local legislation not been passed.
Yeah.
But nowhere in that local legislation does it say that it's the only. And what you just read said that that was a minimum, if I understand right.
I need to revisit that and make sure what it says in the local.
Right, now we need to get the lawyers involved and interpret this stuff to be on the safe side, because it's getting.
But I would appreciate y'all being proactive with that. You know, for this budget, just, you know, for where we've been, because for years, we've been kicking it down the road. And I would really appreciate somebody being proactive. And the reason I put that 35 out there was just because that was a law that we were trying to get, should it be passed, you know. I could work with anything, as we all get it, but I would appreciate having that looked at pretty closely. Thank you.
So 11 is a no.
Correct.
Leave it just like it is.
All right, on to number 12, the CARES ARP Act Grant and Fund wants to add $3.4 million to receive the second installment of federal ARP funds to be used for specific purposes.
Have you heard any more on that?
It's not in the account today, but our research shows that other states have already received it. And the state of Georgia has 30 days in which to get it to us. Probably holding for 30 days in which they receive it to distribute the money. So they'll probably look over that to collect interest for 29 and 3/4 days before they send that out to us.
Do you know how many states have received?
I've seen 3 or 4 at this point. I don't know why they would give 3 or 4 and then stop there. So we're anticipating that we will receive it.
In the month of June.
Yes.
So confidence is high that we're going to receive the 3.4 million second installment of the ARP money, because other states have received, or are already in the process of receiving theirs. So the federal money, the federal government gives it to the state, and then the state delves it out based on the formula to the counties and cities. How we know we get ours is just going to appear magically in our bank account. No letter, no fanfare, no phone call.
Would a fire department training facility be an eligible expense for this money?
Not under the interim rule, which was passed, but the final rule states that
Anything
the funds
goes.
can be used basically as a, almost like a standard deduction, that you can take up to $10 million and use that for any general fund purpose.
And that's one thing, we were gonna keep these funds in the federal account that they come in until we can decipher.
Yes.
Okay.
We're not going to commingle them with other funds.
Yes.
Perfect. Moving on to 13 was the 911 fund. The request was to add $3,600 for property and liability insurance to reflect the actual bill. Then also to add $20,000 to update the 2017 TUSA evaluation study of the 911 radio system due to current operational issues.
My question, What would we expect Tucson to tell us? So we haven't really done anything, have we? Did they recommend it in 2017?
Yes, sir.
What?
More channels.
That's what I'm saying. They would say more towers, more channels.
They have, in that study, they said that the county needed at least 5 or 6 more towers,
Exactly.
and they needed more channels. And we have asked for those, and they have all been denied.
That's what she's saying.
That's what I'm
Nothing-
saying.
Nothing new.
Nothing.
You get nothing.
I mean, we've done nothing since the 2017.
You said we've asked for, we've asked.
I've asked you all. I've asked this commissioner, I've asked the county, gone to the county manager, I've asked you guys in our budgets for towers.
What was the last time that you asked for the towers? Because since I've been sitting here, I know we haven't talked. I've brought it up for the radios, we've been to look at the radios, but not officially is anything coming in front of us to look at the towers.
Yeah. Okay, let me preface this. In 2017, we hired TUSA to come and do an evaluation of the 911 system, i.e. the radio system, the CAD system, and the telephone system. Based on that report, we implemented new CAD system and a telephone system. Spent over $250,000 in fixing the two legs of the three-legged stool, the CAD and the telephone. They're working admirably. What we didn't do because of cost, we didn't address the Tetra radio system because it was so expensive. Don't forget, Harris County is the only county that I know of in the entire United States on the Tetra radio system. It was free. It was given to us by Diverse Power. It's a utility radio system to go from mobile truck to truck, not person to person, and it's supposed to go to buildings. So we got a 911 radio system, not designed for 911 purposes. It's a European model because it was free. It's been working okay for a while. However,
We're having issues.
so we did not address it in 2017 because it's so expensive. The gold standard that every county and city in the U.S. is going to is the P25 standard. That's a federal government standard, P25, and it's a 700-800 megahertz system. Either go it alone or piggyback with another neighboring jurisdiction to piggyback on their 700 megahertz system. That's the gold standard. We are far, far from the gold standard. So it was requested several times in the last several years to get a coverage test. And that was simply denied by the board to do a coverage test to determine where we need to put additional tower sites for the Tetra system. I believe it's time to get away from this unstandard Tetra system and go for the more mainstream traditional P25 700-800 megahertz system. I think it's time to do that. And Monty came to me just last week saying there's issues with dispatching to namely fire departments and other dispatching units where Monty dispatches to law enforcement and EMS and things like that. So there are problems arising, but they were predicted to arise, and here we are. We got new consoles recently, made the situation worse, right?
Actually made it worse.
So we called it Tucson last week and said, hey, you came to an evaluation 2017. For $20,000 more, they'll come back after 5.5 years and update that study to see where we're at and to fix what's wrong with the system now, if it can be fixed. And for $44,000 additional dollars, they will help us migrate to a 700 and 800 megahertz system, a P25 system. And a cost to do that, $44,000 to get us there, but the cost of a P25 system for Harris County, including new radios, mobile radios, portable radios, new consoles, new and additional towers to fix our coverage areas, would be about $10 million. But that is where we're heading sooner or later.
Okay, I just want to clarify something. The last time we had this discussion, about everything you just said was in 2017, 18, something like that.
That is true.
And I believe that the cost at that time was $7 million.
I think so.
So here we are, 22, 5 years later, and of course it's 10 million, is what you're saying.
Just like everything.
But what I want to clarify, I understand all that, is that I don't recall a tower being requested of this board since that time.
It was in 1 year. It was gonna
On Washington Road, Mr. Gann come up here, said he has land available.
That he would give us the time,
He
he would give us the
He
money.
put the tower up, all he needed was the commissioners to pay for the equipment to go on
And
the
we
tower.
said,
No.
They never come.
we said yes,
It didn't come up, not since I've been serving, so.
but we said yes to that.
We did say yes to that. We said yes to 2 towers that we came to.
That's right.
We did say
So I just
yes
want to
to
clarify that it hasn't come here and we've denied towers over and over again. So I just want to clarify
But
that.
there's a fallacy there. There's a fallacy here. We don't know where to put towers unless we do a study to show where the towers need to go optimally. Not because there's a free piece of land, or because Dean has a piece of land over here. Does that tower fit our 911 system's lack of coverage?
I understand all
So
that.
we cannot build a tower at a location without studying where we need it exactly for 911 purposes. Dean was doing it for his commercial purposes. So we can't even entertain the idea of a new tower unless we do a coverage test, an industry-standard coverage test, to know where they go optimally.
And let me say, if the county's gonna do this, this is my personal opinion, just from an engineering standpoint, if the county's gonna decide to do this, this needs to be county-owned, operated, and ran.
And right now, it's not. Tetra System is owned by Diverse Power, and we simply use it, and we have an agreement with them to use it. But if they change technology, we have to change with them.
That's augmentation to a network that happens consistently.
But again, this discussion was 17, and we're having the same discussion 5 years later. Here we are, and Monty's brought this to my attention, and now we'll bring it to the board's attention. We would like to have $20,000 for TUSA to come back, update the 2017 study, and then fix what's wrong now.
When you say fixed, I've got an issue with that. I guess you say fixed when you're talking about European standard. There's not a European standard. There's nothing here that you know about. Right now, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, we are pretty much monopolizing support for this system that is a complete one-off to anything else.
Yes.
Now, New
There's not-
Jersey Transit is using it, but that's like within a mile or two.
Right. There's not a fix to that from a local standpoint. From my standardization of each 25.
Did we not go through the Public Improvement Authority to borrow money at a lower interest rate to fix this system? I'm not saying, we have the 2017 study, we know what we need to fix, or we need to do, I should say.
We know what the problem is, yeah.
Yeah, we know what the problem is, we should have done it back then, I wasn't here, but it should have been done back then, it wasn't. Hey, that's the theme of today, we should have done it back then, we didn't do it.
And hence the
But
reason why
we
the budget-
did,
Right, but
want new CAD, new telephone.
But we did do those two
So what I'm
things.
saying is you can't do everything.
That's right, so that's what I'm saying, so we did those two things, now we're at this point. So how much do you think the 2017 study would be out of whack now as opposed to then on the towers and whatever they said about the 911 system? If we go to the Public Improvement Authority to borrow the money,
From a coverage standpoint, from an engineering perspective, it's not gonna change. Your coverage in itself, depending on what wattage, whatever you use for repeaters or whatever, that changes and it changes the dynamics on where the placement is, but that really is not gonna change a lot. That technology really hasn't
Well,
changed that much.
at that time, so we have not had a study on where to put these other towers to show us exactly where we need them for optimal coverage for the county. When this system was put in, Dean said, we're gonna build minimum and add to as we see where we have trouble spots. It's never been added to.
Mike,
Yes, sir.
I remember seeing a map with the location in that study. I remember seeing a
Those
map with the
those
location.
were provided by Dean. And I like Dean, he does a great job, but here again, those were where he could put towers at. That,
It was Tuesday.
no, I mean, Tuesday,
We had a Verizon study that showed where Verizon towers were.
Right.
Tuesday never did it, so.
That's an LTE base. Right, so optimization maps have not been given to the county for a county-specific use.
Not by an outside independent source.
And honestly, we can't even talk about radio systems until you get that. Because topography in this county hasn't changed. I mean, we haven't had the seismic activity to change it, but we still gotta understand that before we can understand what radio we got.
When we're having issues, we can't get hold of fire departments, they can't hear us, we can't hear them. Same with the deputies, same with the EMS. That's why we went to Mr. Dowling. Look, we need help. We have jumped on these vendors, we give daily emails, calls, phone calls, trying to get them to work with us, and it's not getting done.
Well, I can tell you on Friday, I was at a public safety class for commissioners. When I told them about our system, the guy teaching the class completely laughed and said, "I can't believe y'all are actually able to talk to anybody." I said, "Well, we can only talk to each other. We can't talk to anybody around us. No other counties. I don't even think we can talk to the state patrol when they come in here. We have to give them a radio."
They have our radios.
Right. So I mean, we need to do this. That's why I say we go through the Public Improvement Authority and borrow the money to get it done.
At what percentage?
Whatever those percentage, do we get a lower loan, I would assume for that.
Do we have to change the language on that?
We tried.
I mean, I'm not opposed to trying to get them to come in here and tell us where to put the towers and all, but when they tell us where to put the towers, the problem is then we've got to go do it.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, that's the lifeblood of this county.
I
For those guys to be able to go out, and if you got fire, you got EMS, it goes into.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We gotta figure out where the towers go, but then we gotta go be able to actually do it. So we may need to check in and see if we can go through the Public Improvement Authority to borrow the money to get this done. Because I don't think this is something we can wait 2 years on.
It's not, in my opinion.
I mean,
But we do need to have a study.
Basically, we recognized the problem in 2016, had this Tucson come in 2017, and then 2 of the 3 issues. And that 2 out of 3 is not bad. Now is the time to do the last one, but the last one's gonna be very expensive. We're talking $10 million of expense.
I really think, just me, removing myself from a commissioner's position, just being a public, just a citizen of this county, that safety and being able to peace of mind to sleep at night and understanding that we're completely covered, I'm sorry, I think that's an easy sell to the public. And it's just transparency to the public, to understand why we need this.
So we can double check to see if we can borrow through the Public Improvements Authority, if this is because the PIA was written, I forgot about that, it was written in such a narrow focus.
Yeah, it was just for capital.
It was for recreation and so it was very narrow.
We tried to get that changed.
And the journal, we went to our local legislative delegation to broaden it out, and they refused. They refused to entertain the idea and take it to the General Assembly. So that PIA died. That to make it broader died. So now we're stuck to the narrow. But we can go back and check to see if the PIA, as it currently exists, if 911 systems are eligible for that narrowly focused PIA.
And
But
we
if-
also asked them again to consider that at our meeting with them.
August the 9th.
And give specifics why.
Or if the PIA is not appropriate conduit for debt financing, we can always, there's other ways to acquire debt than not the PIA. PIA would be a little bit cheaper, a little bit more efficient, but there's other ways to acquire debt financing, i.e. through ACCG, certificate of participation.
Let's run this study. I think that's the cart before the horse. I think we need to run a study, figure out what that is. And then we can make a decision from there.
Would anybody like to see the 2017 report? It's yay, it's really thick.
It has drawings, it has photographs, it has all kinds of stuff.
But the very back of it, on page 124, is like the executive summary. But you never can get that far.
I would like to see that. It's working.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
So,
23,600.
Yes.
so 20,000 is to update the report, see what's what, see what's happening. But it'd be an additional 44,000 on top of 20 to migrate to our 800 megahertz system.
But that's 10%.
So we'll only do the 20 as requested.
I say 20 because there's no way we can tell what radio system that we really need to move to until we get in a study and figure out what our penetration is today, then figure out what our augments will have to be.
Well, our penetration rate in 2017 was 79%. The industry standard is 95,
If you got 21%, that means it's not covered.
but we've known that since 2017.
Time to fix it. Yep.
Can I, we went through an 800 system years ago, and it didn't work. Because of the 800 is a very line of sight type item. You had a problem with the north and the south ends of the county. And as a public safety person, I had a problem with it. I didn't have as much problem as some of the sheriffs did because we don't run back and forth as much. But I was with Phoenix City for 30 years. When I retired, we were on the 800 system. It did great in the city, but I can tell you from a cost use, even the radios that, before we moved to the Tetra system, the walkie-talkies that the firefighters carried were in the neighborhood of $500. This was 7-8 years ago when we went to the system. The radios we're buying now from Dean are about $1,400. The radio I carried in Phoenix City was $6,000. So just to outfit the Catawba Fire Department with radios would be about $250,000, $300,000.
That was the Motorola system, right?
It's a Motorola system. As a firefighter, I don't want to carry that brick, and as a taxpayer, I don't want to pay that money. I think there are other systems out there that may or may not be better. I don't know which one. I've been trying to research it myself here lately. And getting a study, I think, is the way to go. But I don't think we need to point right now at we need 800 or we need VHF or we need Tetra. I think we need to get the study and see what they say what's the best for the county. Because there are other things that, as fire departments, we're kind of, as a volunteer fire department, we're kind of a different bird than EMS and sheriff that are on 24 or on duty and then off duty. Because we're kind of on duty all the time. And carrying a radio is great, but I miss the days when I was carrying a pager, and it was a lot more efficient or a lot more secure than going through the telephone. Because now we're going with a company that sometimes we get a text, sometimes we don't get a text. It's supposed to be a backup to the radio system. It's not working. We're in a bad way right now. But I just don't think we ought to line our sight. No disrespect to the county manager, but I don't think we should line our sight right now on what the system should be. Bring somebody in here to tell us what we need.
You know, about 10 years ago, we had an 800 megahertz system. We piggybacked with Columbus. It was very expensive. But 800 megahertz and 700 megahertz, the gold standard, is by definition very expensive to implement and very expensive to maintain. That's just the way the technology works. However, it didn't work 10 years ago. But it was not designed to work. We only had one cell tower. We needed about 3 or 4 cell towers for it to adequately work. So it was so 10 years ago with the 800 megahertz piggybacked off Columbus was not designed to work, and it did not work. The fix was we didn't have enough cell towers or towers to cover it. I mean, it was doomed for failure, and it's easy to spot. I have in my career I have migrated to 800 and 700 megahertz twice, so you know I know what I'm talking about.
Well, the first thing we gotta do is do it.
Yeah. I say we put a money in for the study, we want more. I need to do that.
Or we go back like Chief said, we just give everybody paid.
All right.
That'd be less expensive, wouldn't it, Chief? We just give everybody back pagers again.
I'm sorry.
give everybody back pagers again. That would be fine. We still need radios to talk, but pagers would be sometimes going back to the basics.
Oh, yeah.
All right, on to number 14, T-Splosh to the 2023 fund was to add $650,000 from January 1 to June 30th of 2023 to fund transportation projects due to the approval of the T-Splosh continuation referendum. All right. 15, Rails to Trails Project Fund was to add $1.14 million for Phase 6 of the Manor Trail funded by T-Splosh. 16 was the Airport Fund was to add $40,000 to design 20 additional T-hangars. I think that's a good idea for the county. With those T-hangars, we have a waiting list of people ready to rent out a hangar. Rental revenue, tax funds, gas money, rental money, off the hangars.
And to add to that number 16, the consultant, I said, hey, is 40,000 enough to design 20 additional T-hangars? He said, no, it should be 80.
80?
80.
8?
No, 80, 80.
Now, could we,
Yes.
Not
Yes.
40, but 80.
Can we not use the same design that we have for our current T-hangars? I mean, that's already planned.
But we can't use the same design, but you got to hire the architect to survey the property and do all the land work and design this and bid it out and do construction administration.
Or just do 40 and do 10 additional T-hangars, and then come back next year and do another 10.
But according to the consultant, it's more efficient to do the 20.
Yeah, that's $80,000.
So the price of admission to design 20 additional T-hangars is $80,000 for the consultant. The $40,000 was a little low.
What is the expected MRR on this?
Probably 20 years.
Not ROI, but MRR, monthly recurring revenue.
We charge about per unit, it's in the back here, under the fee schedule.
270 and 190.
How much?
270 and 190.
Depending on size, right?
And then we also get the tax.
We get about
Written
$9,000.
off with it. If somebody has a tip there, we get a decent.
So that's $9,000, really gonna be about $9,000 out for
Yeah, so right now we have 39 T-hangers.
No, I'm just talking about an additional. So you're looking at 20 and you're getting, you said 190?
For our smaller ones, we're getting 190. We're proposing to build the big ones, the jumbos, and we're getting 270.
So we're proposing to get the jumbos.
Yeah, because the extra expense.
Put a small plane in a large one, but you can't. put a
That's
large
right,
one
and
in
the
a small
extra expense to get a little bit smaller building is not worth.
one. So 270.
270 times
And then
20.
just to go back to some of that engineering stuff, the 80,000. There is a lot of pioneering that has to be done to get to the area of the airport where these proposed T-hangars are going to be built. And that's probably why that number is elevated. Some of the actual engineering is just metal building and the concrete and asphalt around it. It's going to be the same, but it's that extra pioneering and getting utilities and stuff to that section of the airport. And then on the efficiency side of what the consultant says, when you're putting in one, you're putting in that ramp area around one, you've already done half for the second one. That's where they get the efficiency.
So we're looking at $5,400 a month into the 80, is just about what?
I forget my tax.
Just a rough number on our tax money. I think the last year was about 60,000 in property tax. What we got there.
I mean, just off the tax money and that, you're looking at. That leaves you at 14, that's basically 14 month, 15 month return. So that's not bad, it's about 14, 15 month return on investment.
And like I said, we got a waiting list, people call every day, they come by, build them, we fill them up like that. Charge them for them, they'll pay. It's you can structure it out there.
How many people do you have on the waiting list right now?
I've kind of stopped taking names at about 30.
So these would be pretty much full, so.
Oh, yeah. As soon as the word gets out, they're gonna be good, and more people's gonna start coming.
Just looking at the metrics and the numbers, return on, and just what we're gonna be recouping on a monthly, I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer to have an asset positive, give it back into the county. What's your thought?
I like it. Generates revenue.
Absolutely. And you're looking at about a 15-month return on that with tax incentives.
Yeah, so they say that when they pay for themselves, they don't cost you anything, they're very low maintenance. You know, they don't have all they have is lights in them, so there's no added like electricity and utility bills for them. It's hard for me to sit behind the desk every day and explain to people, hey, why ain't you built any more acres? When are they gonna build some more? As soon as we have some stuff, I guess.
I say we move forward with the 80.
Thank you.
We'll do that starting to the design.
All right, moving on to the solid waste fund was to eliminate $331,000 for a replacement wheel loader, add $58,000 for a new facility to reflect the actual bid, and add $7,000 for property and liability insurance.
Gotta do those.
Yeah, gotta do those. On the 18, waterworks fund is to add $189,000 to the new building to reflect the actual bid, and then add $9,000 for property and liability insurance.
I don't see on this list the probate magistrate.
That's what I have, I don't see it on there.
That's already included in the budget.
Oh, that's right.
So if the board wants to talk about that, it would be elimination.
Well, I mean, it's already been included for Judge Webb to have an assistant for, however long she's, however long,
17 years.
17 years, thank you. So, I mean, it's already been in that budget for years and years and years. You know, we're only talking about adding it to the probate judge budget, correct?
Can I mention something about that? Just since you brought it up, or not?
So basically, long story short, a part-time person was included in the magistrate court's budget for many years at like $11,000 top dollar.
Right.
It was never
On
used.
call, as used, as needed.
Right.
And it was used until he passed away.
Right.
And then I started being both judges.
So $11,000 top dollars was in the budget under magistrate court judge to be used as needed. Probate nothing. So for them to back each other up, I need to add a little bit more in magistrate because half of it's already there. But all of it is probate.
And this week, with an emergency that came up with Judge Lakes, I'm both. So I've been in court twice a day, Monday, Tuesday, I'll be in court twice a day tomorrow and Thursday.
Roughly $31,000. So it's like 21,000 for each, I think. And she's already got 11, so we add 10 to hers and 21 to the other. So roughly $31,000. Right?
31, 32, 33, yes.
Somewhere around there.
Yes, yes.
So you're talking about adding $32,000 back into the budget, 10 to her, 21 or so to his.
Not back because it's already in it.
That's what I'm saying, but you're adding 10 into her and 21 into his start year.
It's in here. Yes.
We already have it in there.
Yes.
Still think it's a lot for some.
Well, I mean, I agree with you on that, but I also know that, if she finds someone that she wants to hire, that's not Judge Lake, she can still hire that person and then,
But we would have already.
but it would go.
But
it
if
wouldn't
I
stick- it wouldn't
appoint
stick
Judge
with him.
Lakes and the Superior Court agrees, because that's a thing in the law, he's gonna be the one anyway. And that's what the law says he has to be paid. That's where that first number came from. Now, all the stuff that was by law added that Randy and Clint had to put in, and Chris, I mean, we didn't know about, we didn't think about. So that was not the amount that we originally came up with anyway.
So what I'm saying is that say she's not the chief judge or the judge anymore, he's not the judge anymore, whoever the new ones are don't have to appoint them, they can appoint
No,
somebody else.
yeah, that starts every
That's what I'm saying.
time.
It won't stick, it won't stay with them as their salary.
Right.
is what I'm saying.
It can be turned off and on,
Right,
any day of the week, basically.
Right.
yeah.
And I don't know if this helps, Ms. Andrews, or Dr. Andrews, but, you know, we have 7 Superior Court judges, and they each get a $1,200 check from Harris County monthly, and we only see 2 of them a year. And we might not see one of them for every few years. Now, I'm not even comparing jobs or who deserves what, by any means. So I don't know if that helps in, but we're going to do the work, because I do it anyway. I'm going to do more, and Judge Lex is definitely gonna do more if he's paid to do more. So the on-call for the weekends and other things like that, we will be interchanging. And, you know, me doing his probate docket every day this week, fitting it into because I do the civil cases every Monday, and I do criminal every Wednesday. I have first initial appearances every day, because everybody that comes through the jail sees me. So every case that goes through sees me or him, because they're either traffic or they're, you know, crimes that move on to Superior. So they see us regardless, and we're the ones it starts with. And I mean, the case starts with me, and I'm the one that sends it up. So, you know, and then I carry it on through, because I have the initial appearance hearing, or I issue the warrant, I have the initial appearance hearing. Then we have the preliminary, if they're not out of jail on bond, that I make, that I give a standard bond, because if I didn't have a bond schedule, they'd have to call me on every person that comes to the jail. And I just, you know, since 2018, there's been at the highest 1,689 inmates yearly through the jail. At the lowest, 703, which was in 2020, which was when the sheriff kind of shut down the jail. So, and then they go through those things. Besides the, you know, and I got this from the clerk, we have more cases filed in our court monthly than Superior Court does. And again, they have 2 big times of court during the year, and then they have rural visiting days. But, you know, I apologize if I haven't gone down the list of everything that we're responsible for, that me and Judge Lakes. I can't even go into what all he does with his wills, estates, and all that. But, you know, I'm to the point, obviously, we need each other, again. And I do feel like I didn't set that amount, but that's the amount that's in there. And we appreciate everything. I do say, when I go to training, we are so blessed here in Harris County, because there are so many different, like Talbot County, I help them. I have to mentor 6 other judges across the state, and I've done that over my 17 years, or the more I've been in office. And compared to us, you know, we have things running really smooth and really well from the time of arrest up until they go to Superior Court. So
this is not thought of as a supplement like we thought
It is not.
of the others. The other issue that we said no, we're not gonna do, this is not seen as a supplement.
No. This is more of a part-time employee that you, or.
yes, if you were paying an associate judge like I had before, that I decided I didn't need because I could do more myself, you'd be paying upwards of, you know, $40,000 or $50,000. That, or more, depending on the benefits.
So this is an appointed position, like an employee. You can let the employee go, or the employee stays. If he or she goes, the supplement goes away.
But the person is already employed.
But that person does not have to be the assistant judge. Right?
Right, I understand. And I understand you need some assistance, I'm not. Just seems, from my understanding of what the duties are, it seems a lot.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Is there anything you would like to discuss with
So tonight's public hearing number 1, and the next The 21st is public hearing number 2 and consideration of adoption.
What's our total? What's our,
Well,
to general?
so the general fund,
We still have not addressed my situation yet.
Number
Number
4,
four.
we're waiting for Chris. Chris, it was open enrollment day. Right. She's not back in her office yet, but, so we don't have any information from grade 18.
Yeah, we don't have a total numbers yet. They haven't made
Yeah.
a decision.
Okay, it still doesn't involve my department, I understand what y'all are saying. So, I mean, even if there's some more departments that's at an 18, they still have to address that.
Yeah, we understand your request.
I just don't
We
want
just
mine
want
getting
time.
put on the back burner and not getting into the budget.
Well, my
Because you're
position
fixing
is-
to have a public hearing,
Yeah.
and then my request will be put to the wayside and won't be looked at again.
No, it has to be, we have to.
My issue with your request is that I want us to be equitable with like titles. And so I need to know,
Okay.
are we equitable with like titles? And if not, how far off are we?
And that answer is a very easy question. It has an easy answer. If I can get to the right person, we can have the answer tomorrow morning.
Yeah, we'll bring this back up.
Okay. Thank you.
so with the two items that we had questions on, number 3 and number 4, facility maintenance. So we take those out of the question. But those still being in as net additions on the second page of that 1,027,897. All right, we took out 65,000 for the prison boiler room pipe. We took out 104,000 for public works, two F-350s. And we added back 115 for the recreation soccer fields. And we added 63 toward the volunteer fire department training facility.
No, not the 63.
We added that to get 480.
Okay, yes.
So that number became, if those are all, that's everything I've got.
You're getting an expense number right now.
That 1,897,000, with those taken into account, we just went up to 1,036,000 for each. Basically,
There's like
1,036,897.
So you're looking at $9,000 cash above the main.
Yeah.
But our revenue also went up by 3.4 million.
That's ARP.
Through the ARP.
Yeah, I'm talking
Separate fund.
Oh, you're talking.
That was just-
I got you.
Oh, yes, the rest of these would stay the same, other than add, 40,000 to the airport fund instead of the, so we had 40, shift that in.
So that would make the total net additions.
Total net additions. That's for general fund. Plus the one.
Take it 6,228,497. Give or take.
So you're adding 63.
6,268,497.
How much?
6,268,497 is the total net additions.
And that's including the ARP federal money and everything else. So not, it's true that's our, the county's budget went up to that.
That's all fund.
It is all federal fund.
Yes. So the budget will have gone from 61.8
Well, that's really
million
6.8.
to add 6.2 million to it.
Right. And ARP added 6.8 million total.
What's the total now, Randy?
So So 61.8. 61.8 plus 6,200, 6.2 million, 68 million and change, up from 51 million last year.
But
A lot of federal money in here.
But that's inclusive of capital projects, though.
Of 22 million
Yes.
is nothing but capital projects, which I consider community investments.
It is, so if you take the 22 million out of 68, 46 million, minus capital improvements.
Any other questions? All right.
So I'll get a fresh copy tomorrow morning, everyone. In answers to number 3 and number 4.
Perfect. We'll adjourn this work session and pick back up our next meeting at 6:30. The order of this regular Board of Commissioner meeting this evening on June 2nd, 2022. Commissioner Andrews will lead us in our invocation this evening.
Thank you, Chairman. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for your many blessings. Lord, as we look across this beautiful county in which we live, we want to thank you, Lord, for the prosperity of our citizens, for their strength and good health to work. We thank you, Lord, for our county employees and the quality with which they do their work. We pray that you would bless each one of us as we sit here tonight and help us, Lord, to make decisions. Give us wisdom, Lord, to make decisions that will help our county, both present and in the future. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on our agenda this evening is we have Representative Vance Smith here this evening. And he will be the interim president of the Harris County Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Vance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it, and thank you, Randy, for giving me just a minute here at the beginning. I know you're real busy. I want to introduce also Connor Oles. Connor is the communications coordinator, office operations coordinator there at the Chamber. Does a great job. He knows all about computers, but he keeps us straight. We also have Miss Gloria Boyer, who works in the tourism, and I think y'all had the opportunity to meet her when she did a presentation here. But I just want to come by and say, as a chamber, we look forward to working with y'all. I know Mr. Charles Swift's been working with you also, but I just want to publicly say that it's always been a pleasure working with you. And anything we can do, working with the executive committee, the chamber board, the members, and y'all, I think we can all work together and move the county forward. So just appreciate any opportunities. Call on us at any time, and call the office, call me direct. I think most of you have my cell phone number, and we just really do appreciate this time. Thank you for what y'all do.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda this evening is approval of our minutes from the regular session of May 17th of 2022, as well as the minutes from the budget work session, which is our second work session of May 17th of 2022. Is there a motion?
I make a motion we approve the minutes for the regular session of May 17th, 2022, and the budget work session of May 17th, 2022 also.
I will second that. Is there any questions or discussion? And all those in favor? Motion carries. The next item on our agenda this evening is under old business. This is the application of the Board of Commissioners to amend the County Code of Ordinances. The county's Unified Development Code, the UDC, has been in development since early 2020. After many public meetings, public hearings with the Planning Commission and Board of Commissioners and general discussion, including a discussion during May 19th of 2022, board planning session. The summary is attached. The UDC is now ready for final adoption. The UDC has been finalized and has been posted to the county's website for public review. The UDC adoption schedule is as follows. June 7th of 2022. If this happens in this order, the Board of Commissioners will deny the old version of the UDC. On July 20th of 2022, the Planning Commission will conduct a public hearing regarding the final version of the UDC and make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. On August 2nd of 2022, the Board of Commissioners will conduct a public hearing regarding the UDC, regarding the recommended UDC, and then consider adopting it. And then on January 1st of 2023, the approved UDC will go into effect. Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we deny the old version of UDC.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Is there any further discussion? None? And all those in favor? Motion carries. The next item on our agenda this evening is under new business. And this is the first reading of an alcohol application of Whitley Harris for special events facility. This is the facility is located at Old Whitesville Road. It's 47, events facility at Old Whitesville. The location is 4731 Pine Lake Road, West Point, Georgia. The license applied for with a special events facility. It does meet qualifications. Okay, so it meets qualifications to be determined after consideration of a special use permit for a special events facility. The recommendations from the Sheriff's Office was approval, and the Health Department has no recommendations, and Community Development has no recommendations. The applicant will have some time to make some comments. After those comments, individuals either in favor or in opposition to this application will have time to make their comments. And then we will have a second reading of this application on June 21st of 2022. Is the applicant here this evening?
Hey, good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Whitley Harris, and I've put in the application for the alcohol license. Should our special use permit get approved, that's the reason why we applied for this. We want to have a small event venue with the option for patrons to have a champagne toast at a 50th anniversary celebration, mimosas at a bridal luncheon, just small events like that with the option, to have alcohol if one were to wish.
Thank you. Are there any individuals this evening that would like to speak in favor of the applicant? Are there any individuals who'd like to speak in opposition of the applicant? None? Again, we will have a second reading of this application on June 21st of 2022, and at that point, the board will take action. The next item on our agenda this evening is the appointments of the Agricultural Complex Master Plan Committee. During April 19th of 2022, regular commission meeting, Commissioner Andrews requested that a committee be formed to review and update the existing agricultural complex master plan that was developed in 2013. During the May 19th meeting, the board planning session, the board discussed the issue and is recommending the following people and positions be appointed to the Agricultural Complex Master Plan Committee. As a county commissioner, be Commissioner Andrews. As a Cattlemen's Association President, be Jared Hubbard. The Extension Service Director, Steve Morgan. The Chamber of Commerce Tourism Manager, Gloria Boyer. County Recreational Director, Ashley Marston. And individuals include Sandy Reams, Nancy McMichael, and Jamie Tillman. It will be the responsibility of this committee to meet periodically to determine the best use of the complex, estimate cost of improvements, and time frame for completion. These meetings are subject to the state's open records laws. Is there a motion?
I have a question. there's 8 here, do we need to have it where it's an uneven number? We need to have 9.
I was gonna bring that up, and, you know, I'd be willing to sit on that as well, to make that 9th person.
Fine with me, unless we need an actual, not a commissioner, no offense, but a regular citizen.
That's
And
why
I have no
added-
problem, I have no problem with that
The
anyway.
one that I did add was someone that actually utilizes and is on the circuit for radios, and also, could give real insight on multiple complexes, layouts, use of facilities.
Is that Jamie too?
It was Tim has been on farms.
Yeah. That's fine with me. Okay. So, is there a motion?
I'll make the motion that we approve the appointment to the agricultural complex master plan committee, and also add Commissioner Irons on as the 9th appointee.
Okay. I will second that. Is there any further discussion? None? All those in favor? Motion carries. The next item on our agenda this evening is our financial statement from April of 2022. And Mr. Chastain is here this evening to answer any questions the board wants to have. Any questions for him? Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, I will second that motion. All those in favor? Motion carries. All right, the next item on our agenda this evening is for our county manager, and this was a bid award for the Harris County Waterworks Administration Building.
Mr. Chairman, Board of Commissioners, the next item is it's a bid award for the Waterworks Administration Building to be built at 958 Grant Road in Catawba. This project was designed by 2WR Architects from Columbus and bid out. On the deadline date of May 24th, 2 bids were received. Headlift Construction from Newman at $1,749,000. And then Principal Construction, $1,850,000. The low bidder was Headley Construction with a bid of that $1.749 million. Funding for this project was budgeted in the Waterworks Fund at $1.56 million, or $189,000, 12.1% over budget. The balance needed for this project will come from the Waterworks Fund. 2WR Architects is recommending that the low bidder, Headley Construction, be awarded this bid. Motion vote needed to approve the low bid and authorize proceeding with this project. If approved, the project is scheduled to be completed in 240 days after notice to proceed is given, or sometime in March of 2023. As you can see, the recommendation letter and back of your agenda package, a rendering of the building, the site plan of the building, as well as the floor plan of the new building. It's about 4,300 square feet. Sorely needed.
Are there any questions for our county manager about the project? No. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion that we accept the bid and approve and grant the bid to Headley Construction for $1.7 million.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
You want to make sure that you give him the authorization.
Authorization for county clerk and county manager, so that they don't do it.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a second? Second, okay. All those in favor? Motion carries.
Number 10 is another bid award for the Harris County Solid Waste Disposal Site improvements. The solid waste complex is to be built at the transfer station on Barnesville Road in Hamilton. Has been designed by Hartshaw Architects and was bid out. At the mandatory pre-bid meeting, only 2 bidders attended, and those 2 bidders did submit proposals. On the bid deadline date of May 24th, 2 bids were received. You can see from Principal and Thayer Bray, you can see what the base bid was. There was various deducts in case it came in way too expensive. We have the option of having some deducts, an add-on to paint the wood on the truck bays, and a per unit cost for unsuitable soils, and a construction days of 180 days. So the low bidder was Principal Construction from LaGrange with a bid of $1,850,000. a base bid of $1,252,000 with an add number one, paint exposed wood and truck base of $21,000 additional for a total bid of $1,273,000. Funding for this project was budgeted in the solid waste fund at $1,215,000 or only 58,000, 4.7% over budget. Not bad. The balance needed for this project will come from the solid waste fund. The architect is recommending that the low bidder, Principal Construction, be awarded this bid. Motion and vote needed to approve this project and proceed with it. If approved, this project is scheduled to be completed in about 180 days or about January 2023. And you can see in the back of your agenda items, the architect's recommendation letter, an image of the building's facade, as well as the site plan and the floor plan. This is about 1,200 square feet. And then again, it is sorely needed. It's a building with a bunch of pole barns to put under all the garbage, expensive garbage trucks under shelter to get it out of all the elements. So staff recommends approval.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the low bid from Principal as described by the county manager. And, that we award this bid.
Okay. All right. Is there a second?
I'll say.
All right. Any further questions or discussion?
And authorize him to sign the documents as well.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
All right. All those in favor? Motion carries.
The number 11 is courthouse renovation phase 1, guaranteed maximum cost. Again, this is somewhat like a bid award, but it's not. This is courthouse renovation phase 1 of many other phases. 2WR Architects from Columbus conducted an assessment of the county courthouse during 2021 and presented the board with the results of that assessment. The results of the assessment suggested that the courthouse needs substantial repairs totaling over $8 million. 2WR also prepared a priority list of all the needed repairs to be completed over 5 separate phases. This is only phase 1. Phase 1 consists of replace the roof of the entire building, clean and paint the exterior surfaces, replace the store windows on the historic portion, repair the front balcony and canopies on the historic portion, investigate and repair the interior courtroom balcony and the historic portion, and a new thing was added to repair the foundation of the 1998 addition. 2WR was hired to prepare construction drawings for this major renovation project. In addition, the county hired River City Contracting for Fortson, Georgia, during early 2022 after a competitive process to serve as the construction manager. Their responsibility was to review the construction drawings as prepared by 2WR and the site to prepare a guaranteed maximum price for phase 1. Their guaranteed maximum price for phase 1 for the renovation, that's everything but the HVAC, is $1,626,042. Built in this price is a $250,000 contingency that may or may not be used for unforeseen items. And $1.7 million was budgeted in the SPLOST 19 funds, or almost $74,000, 4.5% under budget. Good budget. The GMP to replace the entire building's HVAC system is $1,882,035. $2,024,900 was budgeted in federal ARP funds, or $142,865, or 7.6% under budget. Phase 1, if you combine the renovation and the HVAC, is a combined GMP, guaranteed maximum price, of $3,508,077. And representatives from River City Contracting is at the meeting to review this project and answer any questions or concerns the board may have. If approved, the procurement of all needed materials will begin, which could take up to about 6 weeks. followed by a notice to proceed. Once a notice to proceed is given, the project should take about 6 months to complete. And as a reminder, all construction work will occur while the courthouse is in operation. We will have frequent coordination meetings between the contractor and the courthouse offices. There will be noise, odors, and inconveniences during the 6-month construction period. So a motion and vote needed to accept the DOT maximum price and proceed with the project. You can see in your agenda package how all the materials are broken down to get to the $3.5 million total cost. And again, representatives from River City Contracting, the company that will be actually making all the repairs, is here to answer any questions or concerns.
Any questions from the board?
Well, I'm assuming, Randy, that they took into consideration of the historic part of the old courthouse with all of this that they've done, so they know how to, we're not gonna mess anything up that's historical, since it's on the little historical register.
That's not already messed up.
That's not already messed up that we're trying to fix.
Yes, the architects, they knew this was on the National Register, and the plans were prepared in accordance with those historic standards.
Well, I made the motion that we accept the GMP and proceed with this project.
I'll second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries.
And this is only phase 1. There's more phases coming. Item number 12, budget amendment to purchase a wheel loader for solid waste. During budget workshop number 3 on May 24th, the solid waste director explained his need for a replacement wheel loader that is in the 22-23 proposed budget. During the meeting, the board had a consensus to proceed with the purchase of this needed piece of equipment this fiscal year rather than next fiscal year, and officially ratify this purchase at this meeting. So a motion and vote is needed to approve the purchase of a new 2022 Caterpillar 962M wheel loader for solid waste for $318,545 from state contract pricing. And the $331,000 in next year's budget has been eliminated. And this piece of equipment has already been ordered and is scheduled to be delivered during mid-July.
Well, I'll make the motion that we have the budget amendment to purchase the replacement wheel loaders for solid waste, since I tried to do that the last time and realized that I couldn't do it during that budget hearing, our budget meeting.
I will second that. Questions or further discussion?
I do have a question. I thought that it was a used one.
No, it's new. It's a new piece of equipment.
And that we were gonna repair the other one. I think that's
We're-
something else.
We're going to keep the old one
And repair.
as a backup and repair it. When the parts become available, according to Caterpillar, in the next 1 to 2 years, that's when the spare part might be available.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries.
I can squeeze it in.
All right, let's squeeze it.
Okay. The project updates, quickly. The projects the county is currently working on, again, we're winding down our fiscal year on June 30. Number 1, update the county's website. That is being updated right now. The Unified Development Code, the board had a discussion on that this evening. Number 6, the new EMS volunteer fire department facility at the business park. That's ongoing, should be bid out probably late next week. Again, that's another capital project, another investment in the community the county is making. Number 18, the new public works facility. Basically, we're starting that project last week to get a program, a site selected, and pursue that project. Number 24, phase 5 of the Metal World Trail is under construction to be finished by November of this year. Quickly going, number 41, Waterworks Building, that was approved tonight's meeting, as well as number 44, that was approved during tonight's meeting. Number 47, the impact fee, we're still waiting for the state to approve the county CIE.
What do we think about spending time like that to be approved?
It got hung up at the RVRC. There was a Zoom call this afternoon, and the answer to that would
be that the RVRC has drafted, or is in the process of drafting their report. The revised CIE has been sent to DCA, and my understanding is after that report goes to DCA, we hopefully will have an update on the timeline of possible approval.
When you say it was revised CIE, do you know it's changed?
There were some changes that, it wasn't so much changes as clarification on some of the questions that came back from DCA, and so Lee Walton had made some clarifications and provided them with some additional information on some of their questions.
And number 48 and 49, the quarterly retreats and the annual legislative dinner, that's been scheduled for August the 9th at 4:30 and 6:30. And number 56, lost negotiations with the cities. The letter went out, and the initial meeting would be a week from today, June the 14th, at the library at 5:30 to begin lost negotiations with the city. You can see all the SPLOS and lost collections are healthy. Building permits, I believe Maine was 13. So you can add 13 to the 239. So we have surpassed the previous 4 years' annual numbers for single-family home building permit issuance.
That does not include the multi-dwelling in St. Thomas.
It does not include apartments.
Correct. So that number is different.
Yes. So that's the report. We have to answer any questions the board may have.
Randy, could you give the board an update on the phone call that you and I were on with the Diverse Power about our broadband, since we got the grant for Diverse to put in broadband here?
We had a meeting with Randy Shepherd, the CEO of Diverse Power, and the broadband and their implementation schedule. Again, they're working on it. They have no time frame. They're working in other counties right now, and they're going to get in Harris County as soon as they can. But it was very vague and fluid.
16, 18 months.
So when is the deadline to have the funds expended?
I think 3 or 4 years. Yeah, it's well into the future.
And they did say there was a few questions they had to go back with the state on the grant, on some things, on where they could actually provide the broadband based on the different power companies we have in the county and different services. So they're checking with the state on that.
Serviceability groups and what's considered underserved at the time.
Yeah, right.
Any other questions? No? Next item on our agenda this evening, we'll jump forward to our public hearings that will start at 7 o'clock. In these public hearings, I will call the public hearing to order. After that, we'll have the reading of the application, followed by the presentation by the applicant and their representative. After that, there will be a 5-minute time limit of comments that can be made by individuals in favor of the application, followed by comments of individuals in opposition to the application. Once that is done, then the applicant will have time to have a summary or rebuttal for the final comments. Once that is completed, we will close the public hearing and the board will take action. We will start that at exactly 7 o'clock. All right, we'll open up our first public hearing this evening. This is the first of two public hearings regarding the proposed budget. 3 budget work sessions have been held, the first on May 3rd, followed on May 7th, and then the third was on May 24th of 2022, during which the board heard from the department heads, constitutional officers, and included review of our general fund, special revenue funds, to include the CARES ARP Act Grant Fund, Confiscated Asset Fund, Jail Fund, Law Library Fund, Drug Abuse Treatment and Educational Fund, Emergency Telephone System, 911 Fund, Hotel Motel Tax Fund, and Local Victim Assistance Program Fund. Also included capital project funds, Public Improvements Authority Fund, SPLOST 2014 Fund, which is now closed, T-SPLOST of 2013 Fund, SPLOST of 2019 Fund, Economic Development Project Fund, and Rails to Trails Project Fund, followed by the Debt Service Fund, Enterprise Fund, Airport Fund, Enterprise Funds to include the Airport Fund, Solid Waste Fund, and Waterworks Fund. After this, the second public hearing is scheduled to be held during the June 21st of 2022 meeting, and followed by the adoption of the fiscal year 2022-23 budget. Are there any individuals tonight who would like to speak in favor of the budget? Are there any individuals this evening who would like to speak in opposition of the budget? None. Would anyone from the board like to make any comments about the budget this evening? Okay. If there are no comments, then we'll close this first public hearing and move on to our next public hearing. Our next public hearing this evening is an application by Whitley Harris for a special use permit for a special events facility on 1.47 acres of property located at 4731 Pine Lake Road, West Point, Georgia, located on map 024A, parcel 028, land lot 323, land district 20, and is currently zoned A1, agricultural forestry. Ms. Harris, would you like to make any comments?
Good evening again. As a quick introduction, my name's Whitley. I live in Pine Mountain and I've lived here my entire life. I'm married to Brandon Harris, who's here with me. We have 2 kids, a little boy and a little girl, Hugh and Lucy. I'm a nurse practitioner at Emory in LaGrange, and Brandon works as a lineman in Columbus. Our careers offer stability, but for years we've dreamed about creating and owning our own business. When we learned that Whitesville Methodist Church was for sale, we were in disbelief that such a beautiful historical venue was vacant. Given our love for community gathering and family, we started dreaming up ways in which we could repurpose the building while preserving its history and charm. The venue is small with a maximum occupancy of 87 people. Our vision is to provide an event space for families to host small events such as bridal showers, graduation parties, anniversary celebrations, baby showers, etc. We also would like to host seasonal events for the community such as Easter egg hunts and pictures with Santa. Ideally, our events will take place during the day. This is what we plan to market for. Ultimately, we want to be a small, family-oriented venue where our community can come together for good, old-fashioned fun. To bring this vision to life, we purchased the Whitesville Methodist Church and named it Old Whitesville. We have spent the last year pouring our literal blood, sweat, and tears into upgrading the space to ensure that it's up to code and ADA accessible. I could spend the whole evening telling you about the exciting updates we've made and the dreams that we plan, and the plans we have to keep Old Whitesville as a landmark in our community. But first, we must obtain a special use permit, which is why I'm here today. Old Whitesville will operate almost identically as an event venue as it did as a church. Still, I think it would be helpful to address some potential concerns and our plan for dealing with each of them. First, we will ensure that Old Whitesville operates in complete compliance with local ordinances. We will take appropriate measures to ensure that lights and sounds minimally encroach on surrounding properties by working with reputable experts and vendors. As mentioned before, our venue is best suited for daytime events, but should we decide in our discretion to host an evening event, events will end at 8:30 on weekdays and 10:30 on weekends. Second, we will, of course, operate our business with the health and safety of our patrons and surrounding community in mind. We will diligently comply with all health and safety regulations and have policies in place to minimize the business's impact on the local environment. Third, all events will have adequate traffic control with a maximum occupancy of 87 people and only 29 parking spaces. We do not anticipate that any given event will generate significant traffic. Regardless, we will prepare as though it will, and if necessary, we'll hire local enforcement to manage increased traffic. As for parking, we currently have a lease with the Whitesville Methodist Cemetery Association, and we will follow their guidelines and rules for parking as well. We will not line the street with parked cars. As part of our condition from the planning committee, we have a backup parking option. And our parking lease with the Whitesville Methodist Cemetery Association was actually our backup option. Plan A was to create a parking lot behind the church, and we've actually done all the work already for that. We've met with surveyors, we've met with land clearers, we've met with graders, we've talked with community development. We know about the land disturbance requirements for the county, but the only drawback on doing that now was it was going to cost us about $10,000. And we've just completed all the ADA upgrades and bathrooms, so we made the decision to go with Plan B, see if our permit even gets approved, see how our first year of business does, and then proceed with our plan to have the parking on our property. Lastly, we will commit to preserving the building consistent with its history and keeping up the property so that it does not devalue surrounding properties, become an eyesore, or worst of all, continue to deteriorate from abandonment. There's other similar businesses in the area that we all know and love. They've positively impacted the community and provided our families with spaces to create lasting memories and traditions. These include Sunnyside Community Club, Oakhurst Farms, Union Community Center, Pine Mountain Chalets. I'm hopeful that we can add Old Whitesville to that list. I have 40 personally written letters from people within the community that have written for us, and I can provide those if needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any individuals who'd like to speak in favor of the applicant this evening? Yes, ma'am. If you'll please state your name and address.
My name is Elizabeth Jameson Rocky, and let me spell Rocky. It's Rouquie. And I live at 2239 Pine Lake Road, West Point, Georgia. Just to clarify, this is in Harris County. I am the vice president of the Whitesville UMC Cemetery Association, and we own and maintain the cemetery that is adjacent to the building, as well as the cemetery across the road, across Pine Lake Road, and the vacant lot. And up until about a month ago, we owned the building that used to be the parsonage, and we sold it to a couple who also help maintain the cemetery lots, cutting grass and so forth. I'd like to definitely point out that there are many historic burials, graves in that cemetery, including some that are only stacked stone. The association does maintain those as well as the newer burial plots. The association is comprised of people whose families attended the building when it was a church, Whitesville United Methodist Church, as well as have family members, ancestors buried in the cemetery. And the association wholeheartedly supports the use of the building for, as Ms. Harris has proposed. We have executed a lease. It is a year-by-year lease, however, with renewal for as long as needed. And the board has spoken about that and all in agreement that we would renew. On a personal level, I have many ancestors buried in that cemetery, and we also have plots for future burial use. My family has been members of what was the church for many generations, including founding members who helped build the building. So we have a lot of interest in the building. It's a beautiful building, and we do not want to see it deteriorate, which it was beginning to do before Ms. Harris and her husband came in and started renovations. And I have to admit, it warms my heart to see the building being cared for and loved as they're doing. My husband and I live on Pine Lake Road. We're part of the community. My son and his family also live on Pine Lake Road. And we all support the use of this historic and beautiful building as an asset to our community. Okay.
Are there any other individuals who'd like to speak in favor of the applicant this evening? No? Are there any individuals who'd like to speak in opposition? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address as well.
Good evening, Jack Slide, Columbus, Georgia, and also Hopewell Church Road, 789 Hopewell Church Road in Whitesville. I have a presentation that I've printed for your convenience. If I can approach, I'll hand it out to you. Yes, ma'am.
And can you just say your last name again?
Sly, S-C-H-L-E-Y.
One question, you say Columbus?
I'm a landowner on Hopewell Church Road in Whitesville, but I live in Columbus. Yes, sir. So as a member of the Whitesville community, as a student of its history, but in particular the history of the Whitesville Methodist Church, and on behalf of my fellow community members who have asked me to speak on their behalf, we'd like to start off by saying we are excited and thrilled to see a young couple that has bought the Whitesville Methodist Church and is excited about preserving it and using it. However, we are concerned with safety, proper zoning ordinances, and historic preservation itself of the property and the structure. And we feel that the special use permit could endanger all three. If you'll flip to the second page rather, of the PowerPoint, we are talking about Whitesville Methodist Church along Pine Lake Road. There's a picture of the church that you can see. On the third page, you'll see the official survey of the property that the applicants actually own next to an aerial view of the property. And when you compare the two, you'll see that most of their property is in fact wooded. And the reason for that is there's a sharp drop-off in the terrain of the property once you get into that tree line behind the interior open part of the cemetery lot. And you can also see across the street where the cemetery expanded in the early 1900s due to the fact that there is that sharp drop-off and the flat land, the land available for use actually terminates right within that tree line. On the survey, you'll see a hog wire fence that's along the border of the cemetery. That hog wire fence is still there and is just inside that tree line where the open space of the cemetery ends. On the next page, you'll see a larger aerial view of the property, which is outlined in yellow. And then each of the red asterisks are the adjoining adjacent property owners, which the zoning ordinances are most concerned about. These are the neighboring property owners who have outspokenly voiced their opposition to the special use permit and have signed an objection which I have here, their original signatures, and a copy is attached at the end of each of your packets. And these individuals are who I'm speaking on behalf of, and some of whom are here with me this evening. So as for our reasons that the permit should not be granted, and which I'll summarize briefly and go into more throughout this presentation, they cannot satisfy, the applicants cannot satisfy the Planning Commission's primary condition that the parking take place on owned property. As they've just explained to you, they do not own their largest chunk of available space for parking. It's under a temporary lease that can't be renewed. However, if that lease should be endangered or not renewed, they would lose their available parking space. Also, due to conditions we'll get into more here in a minute, they cannot expand the property they do own to accompany more parking due to unmarked graves and the terrain itself. Also, the applicable zoning ordinances here in Harris County do not favor a special event use of this facility as they are petitioning for, mainly because it adversely affects the adjoining property owners. It would raise fire and safety concerns, and it would impose a burden on the street itself, which is a one-way, or not one-way, but one-lane road with no curve or no shoulder finished off for parking and such. And then the final concern is safety with the road and pedestrians on the road itself. On the next page, you'll see an example of the steep drop-off that's on both sides of the applicant's property. This, from the street view, you can see a 10 to 15 foot drop from the road up to where the cemetery and the church are located. The drop is even more significant within the tree line on the back of the property, where the applicants wish to, or claim they want to expand a flat area for parking. On the next page, or rather, we'll stay here for a minute, you'll see that there are, the graves are at the top of the hill, and the graves do in fact extend into the tree-lined area, and many of which are unmarked, but are in some instances visible, that show the property owned by the applicant would, if they decide to park there, would be parking on unmarked graves. As we just mentioned, the area that they've leased, they do not own, which was one of the Planning Commission's requirements for the, or recommendations for the permit to be approved. The space in this picture across the street is where they've leased space for parking, and that area is occupied by a fire hydrant. And should parking take place on this lot, it could interfere with the fire service's access to that fire hydrant for occupants occupying the 170-year-old wooden structure in the event that there is a fire. As for the zoning ordinances that are applicable in this instance, one of them is that the permitted use be suitable to the area. This is a commercial special event facility that's being petitioned for, and it's surrounded by residential areas. And one of the biggest draws of Harris County to residents is that they wish to have a quiet and peaceful place to live and away from rural settings. And this would invite a urban setting into this rural area, and quiet area. It would also increase noise and traffic along the main street, which, as you can see through some of the pictures, is not very open to a lot of traffic and a lot of space. This also has a double line down the middle of it, which indicates that no passing is permissible, and that is due to the grade change, the fact that there's very minimal visible area due to the hill and the curve in the road itself. They've said that they will not park along the street. However, without the lease and without the ability to park on their own property, there would be nowhere else to park. And that poses a traffic risk and a danger to the road itself. And then other conditions is also a part of the ordinance. And the other conditions include primarily the unmarked graves. Evidence of the unmarked graves around the cemetery is on the historic marker for the church itself, which says many stones are unmarked, many graves are unmarked and uninscribed fieldstone markers, which are inadvertently removed over time. And then just inside the tree line, you can see in this photo where the land drops off after their property line. But also within this tree line, you can see original plants from the Victorian era that were popular with landscaping burial grounds, such as the irises at the foot of the tree there, and that indicates case there are in fact burials in that area that could not be disturbed. Other conditions include the dangerous nature of the road. On the next page, you'll see the views of the street and how from both sides of the church, you cannot see what's on the other side of the church from no matter which direction you're approaching from, because the church sits on the top of the hill. There's also a speed limit of 45 miles per hour in this area, and people, if you're familiar with Pine Lake Road, particularly this part of it, people fly down that road, and would create a hazard to pedestrians. There's also no sidewalks for people to walk along as they cross the road from the leased parking space, and there are no street. The history, according to some of the neighbors, of car wrecks happening near the church and at this site on Pine Lake Road. We are not ignorant of the fact that this is a historic site that's been used for hundreds of years. We just ask that a curfew be imposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals who'd like to speak in opposition this evening? None? Ms. Harris, would you like to make any further comments?
I'm not sure exactly how he knows where we're going to set up the parking lot, because we've never talked. But the parking lot has to be only 80 feet by 120 feet to satisfy the county's spots. And it'll be behind the church. We've already met with graders, land clearers, talked with the county. The unmarked graves are actually on the left side of the graveyard. We've walked the property multiple times. There's no graves behind the church. Big point I really want to make is that the occupancy load of the church is determined by the building. You know, we can't say we want to have 30 people in 10 parking spots because it's what the building can hold. So just because the occupancy load is 87 people with 29 parking spots doesn't mean every event is going to be 87 people with 29 parking spots. One other incorrect thing that he said was we don't have parking at the church. We do have spots. We have 17 10 by 20 spots at the church. The parking across the street would just be overflow, for that. And that was a requirement for the special use permit, was to show 29 spots for 87 people. But that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to have 87 people with 29 spots. But we do have the capability to do that, which is what the building occupancy load is. And, we care about everybody's safety too. It's our property, we're responsible. We're not gonna do anything that would harm the safety of the community. We feel that our plan is safe and that we would do it safely, and we've put a lot of thought into this for the last year and really considered every possibility. We've met with community members. I'm not sure about the petition, but the neighbors across the street that are in support for us actually said the petition, they were told it was for not wanting alcohol in a church is what they thought that they were signing. So,
Excuse me, can I ask a question? I know it's been, about 5 years since there have been services at the church.
Correct.
But are you aware of any complaints about parking during that time?
No, and we've met tons of the church members every time, the old church members, every time we're there. People stop in and visit, and they tell us how happy they are, that the church meant so much to them, and they hated to see it, deteriorate. We've had really overwhelming support from everybody that we came in contact with.
Well, it's a beautiful old church, and I commend you for what you're trying to do.
Thank you.
With the parking, I know you said that you'll have an overflow across the street from the church, which if you're coming out of the church, that'd be to the left of the cemetery across the street.
Correct.
If you're talking about putting a parking lot on the back of the church, and right now y'all have a lease to use the parking lot across the street as Plan B, I think is what you said?
So our plan A was to do the parking lot behind the church, but it was going to cost about $10,000 to have the trees cut, to have it graded, to have everything kind of fixed for appropriate parking. So that's when we decided to go with the lease across the street in order to see if we got approved. And then if we got approved, would it be worth it to spend another $10,000 on top of all the money we've spent so far building a handicap bathroom, making it ADA accessible? You know, we're just trying to be smart about what we do.
All right, so let's say you go with it and you do the parking lot in the back.
Yes.
Would you then cease to use the parking lot across the street?
The parking
Because I know
lot-
one of the questions is crossing the street from the church to the parking lot, and people on the road or walking
Yeah.
across the parking road. So if you did the parking lot in the back, you would cease to use the one across the street where you wouldn't have that issue.
Correct, yes.
Have you thought about, because they did a church like you're doing up here off Highway 27, I know you mentioned having a deputy or a law enforcement officer. Have you thought about also placing out signs in reasonable distance, letting people know coming up from the fire department and coming in from Whiteville that says we have an event coming,
Yes,
and those
definitely.
kind of things?
For sure, yeah, we want everybody to be completely safe, and we would definitely incorporate that, you know, have a crossing guard, you know, deputies there. But really, we don't plan on having large events. You know, if we have a 30-person baby shower, 15 cars can park on our side of the road. You know, the only instance where we would have to use the parking across the street was if we had a large event, which we really don't want to do, you know.
All right, and another question I have, and I know we're talking about your alcohol license, and I think you said that they signed a petition because of alcohol. If they're doing champagne, are y'all gonna provide the alcohol, or are you gonna allow those people to bring it?
So,
But I know some of the events, you have to purchase
yeah,
from a specific vendor at that
right,
event.
we would have to know what they're having, what they're serving, the amount, and it would have to be served. You know, we're not gonna allow people to just, you know, be doing keg stands or something there. You know, we're gonna manage everything well.
Because I do know the road, I mean, you know, the road is kind of narrow, it's a tough road to go down. As a matter of fact, I was on the road Saturday and got hit head on by the people down past the fire station doing wheelies on their motorcycles up and down the road.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I understand the safety concern, but the safety concern has been there as long
Right,
as the road's been there.
That's how we feel. You know, the church has been there for 160 years. You know, we plan to function basically like they did. It's just switching hands and bringing everything up to today's standard.
And with it being a historical church, did y'all have to make sure that y'all, when y'all did your renovations, that you fit within what the church,
Yeah,
and with it being historical?
Correct. We've really done nothing outside except painted it, fixed the roof, and built a ramp, which was required by the county to make it handicap accessible. We really just plan on keeping the outside fixed, you know, as it is.
Brian?
Yes, sir.
Since you are with the planning commission, and it does say, provide ability to park on their own property and they're gonna lease across the street, is that a situation with you and community development or the planning commission? Knowing that they're going to,
meeting, I was gone that night, but it is not, based on what Lee and I looked at, we did not see it as a concern. Typically, because it's been used as a church for past 100 years, what would be any different now?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
I will say that the planning commission recommendation was approval with the following conditions: weekend closure by 10:30 p.m., weekday closure by 8:30 p.m., and also to provide a plan to verify ability to park on owned property. The staff recommendation was approval with the following conditions in order to maximize public safety and minimize potential impact to adjacent residential neighbors. The lighting shall be directed away from all adjoining residential property and public roads. The lighting shall not illuminate a public road directly or indirectly with a level of intensity that is deemed to be potentially hazardous to vehicular traffic by the Georgia Department of Transportation or by the Harris County Department of Public Works. And all activities shall take place inside the venue due to noise concerns in the residential area. Any other comments from the board? None? At this point, we'll close this public hearing and take action. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Are there any conditions or
Without the conditions, the current conditions.
of the planning commission or of staff?
Including the owned property?
All of it, okay.
All right, so for owned property, that would mean that they would have to do the parking lot in the back and not be able to use the lease across the street.
Is that right, Brian?
Well, the condition of the planning commission was to be able to show that they could park on their property, not that they had to.
I don't think we'd want to do one or the other. We would want to do both.
Show that they could, clarify that, now you were at the meeting, right? So you
Right.
wasn't here.
At the meeting, they had obviously advised that they had the lease agreement, and the planning commission was interested in knowing that they would be able to also be able to accommodate vehicles on their own property as well. They didn't say, they did not require that they had to use their own property, but just that they wanted to make sure that in the event that the lease were to expire or to no longer be valid, that they would be able to accommodate their own venue.
And we know right now they have 15, 17, because they got the handicap one.
Yes.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I would second it and, ask that you clarify in the minutes what you just said, that they had to show that,
Should be, yes.
not just that, leave it as this statement.
And it also is to incorporate the staff recommendations as well?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries. The next item on our agenda this evening is another public hearing. I will open this public hearing. This public hearing, with the applicant is Dylan Lloyd Thomas. It was for, right. And it was for a commercial kennel at the location of 1245 Winfrey Road, Hamilton. Map 069, parcel 010, land lots 55 and 74, land district 21. It was on 16.867 acres, which is use permit in A1 and C4 with special use permit, and the property is currently zoned A1. This application has been withdrawn. Mr. Dillon will no longer be seeking this permit. But we still need to have a public hearing, correct, if anybody chooses to speak in favor or.
The application being on the table is
Okay, all right.
I would like to ask one question about the attorney. I noticed that the planning commission recommendation was disapproval with no reason for that.
I wasn't at that meeting, so I don't
But
know.
is that, I mean, what I'm trying to ask is, should there be reasons? Or can they just do?
I mean, they certainly can just do a recommended approval or recommended denial, but to the extent that y'all are looking for technical assistance from them with the recommendation, obviously, reasons for or against would be helpful, but certainly not required. I would say that y'all certainly can look at their record for the discussion and deciding, but to help summarize and make your decision, yes.
Our next public hearing that I will open this evening, this is the application of the Catala Volunteer Fire Department for a special use permit for a fire station on 2 acres of property located on northern 2 acres of 7211 US Highway 27, Catala, Georgia, located on map 061, part of parcel 020, land lots 5 and 6, land district 21, and zone A1. Is there a representative here this evening?
Bad penny. I'm Bill Zucker, CCU, KOR. Chief of the Catawba Fire Department, I'm here to speak on behalf. We went for the special use permit. I believe it was approved with no restrictions, if I understand right. I happened to be out of town at the time, somebody else went. We've been looking for a piece of property for better than 10 or 15 years. We tried to get one donated, and Mr. Lane and Earl and Elaine Davis, who run the recycling, had purchased the land which used to be the, I call it the junkyard, had all the cars on it. He was gracious enough, or they were gracious enough to donate 2 acres, 2 northern acres to us so we could put in a fire station. We've been in touch with DOT already, so we've started the process. If you will grant us the permission to do it. It will affect probably a couple hundred houses out of the gate. The biggest ones it will affect will be the people in the Highland Grove area, Voorhees Road. When they moved the fire station in Hamilton from downtown to where it is now, the Voorhees Road dropped off the 5-mile area, and they're grading it from whatever the rating was to a class 10, which is basically non-existent. Some of those people are paying, all of those people are paying thousands and thousands of dollars in homeowners insurance. A couple of years ago, I figured it up, and I think 50 or 60, and I could be wrong on this number, but I think it was somewhere $40,000 to $60,000 cumulatively as a community that they will save if we can get a fire station open in that area. Plus, it will increase our ability to respond faster to the areas down 208, back up in towards Hamilton and everything. So we're here requesting the approval. Thank you.
Are there any individuals who'd like to speak in favor of the applicant seeking? None. Are there any individuals who'd like to speak in opposition? None. Okay. Are there any questions from the board?
How much was that, just a question, how much was the permit application? Special use?
The permit application?
$400.
$400.
Any other questions? Okay. We will close this public hearing and take action. Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we allow Talbot to build a fire station.
Okay.
I'll second that, but I want to go one step further. I'd like to make a recommendation that we refund the application fee for the fire department, since they are they're a fire resource for the county. Can we do that? It's a private company.
We are a 501c3 organization. We have filed 1 or 2 decades ago to get that. And I was going to ask for the refund in that, but I just forgot because I was caught up in trying to get the approval. But we did get charged through the commissioners or whoever charges the fee $400, and we would appreciate it back. That's like everybody else would. We have limited funding.
So from a gratuity clause standpoint, I think there is certainly an argument to be made that the county is receiving consideration for the building of a volunteer fire department for the obvious reasons that you're providing fire services to citizens of the county. So I think that there's certainly an argument to be made that it could be done.
Misconstrued, or it can be.
It can be. You could waive the permit fee for such activity, because it's providing a service that otherwise the county is entitled to provide and would be paying for. You don't have to provide it, but you can.
The question I would ask is, have we ever done that before?
No.
Have they ever asked us?
Not that I know of in the past.
Have they ever asked us to provide it?
Well, we will be waiving the building permit fee, just so you know that.
Okay.
And how much is that?
We don't know how much the building would be, but it would be zero for them.
Why would you do one and not the other?
We've always done that for the fire departments, for the
Always done that. Always done that. I think we need to be consistent. Either we treat them like a private company and don't do it, or we do, right now we're doing a hybrid, which makes no sense. So we need to do it one way or another.
I agree with you.
Which is gonna be higher, Brian?
Sir?
Which would be higher? The building permit fee be higher?
Or Oh, the building permit, I'm pretty sure would be higher.
Which is, I'm saying, which is probably why we've always waived the building permit fee, but not the special use permit fee.
Well,
Probably, I guess, I don't know.
based on what my records that I've looked through, I've only seen one other special use permit for a fire department. They've usually not ever followed the correct protocol. So thank you, I did my job.
We did the right thing.
And if y'all want a refund, it's no problem, it doesn't matter to me, it's y'all's call, right? This comes out of my budget.
We had a motion.
Get this motion with Rob, with Rob at the.
Yeah, I have no problem with it, but I would say going forward, then we need to either do it from now on, or we either need to not do it now. But I agree, we need to be consistent on what we're gonna do.
And with building permit fees as well. Y'all need to decide.
That's what I'm saying, we need to get consistent on what we're gonna do.
So you're amending your motion to do what? To waive the special.
We'll waive the special use permit fee and the building permit fee. But, because we're already waiving it. But he's waiving it, we ain't even said we were waiving it.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna do that here, and if another one comes, then we better, whoever's sitting in these seats, might not be any of us. It needs to be down that it's gonna be waived at that time, or either we need to continue on with the practice that the community development director has already established.
That's not,
Well-
okay, that's.
Well, y'all can certainly make policies and procedures, but you can't bind future bodies. So
Yeah.
y'all can make the policy decision to waive it all or not waive it all, and that's in your prerogative, but then a future sitting board could change that policy.
Do we put that into the community development policy, fee policy? Because he has his own fee schedule.
Yes, but again, that could always be amended.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve and to include no fees.
For this fire department.
For this fire department.
Building,
For this
For
application.
this application of the Catawba Fire
including building permits and special, and this,
and special use permit.
any fee.
Any fee for this application, this time, one time only. How much how specific do you want me to get?
Basically.
You know, I just want to let them have their building.
But I
But
guess,
I mean, we're turning this into a convoluted thing, and all they want is a building.
staff needs clear direction for now and in the future. So tomorrow, when this meeting's over, they're gonna say, hey, where's my money? Well, we don't know what happened. So we will make very crystal clear what happened. So if the board makes that decision, boom, there's your precedent, there's your policy from this point on. For any fire department,
You can't tell the
Not
others no.
necessarily.
well, that would be our policy, that would be our policy that we would follow. Because we don't want to be in the position to say yes or no to this fire department or that fire department. If y'all say yes to the Catawba, we're going to say yes to everybody and be consistent and not have this discussion ever again.
I mean, you're talking about individual case based. I mean, that's what we're talking about, right, Russell? Each individual case of application is based on the, not precedent.
We're not making the precedent by voting on these.
Somebody in the future can look at what y'all did here and argue you should do it that way in the future, but you don't have to.
Right. Does not seem
But I understand the staff needs clear direction.
yes.
So he has been waiving the fee, and you know,
You've been
which
waiting.
raises the question, are there other fees that are waived based on history that perhaps we don't know about?
Well, I think we waive fees for other municipalities within the county.
In schools.
And schools.
And public entities.
Yes.
So you're treating the fire department as a public entity in this case.
No,
However, in other
no,
cases, we treat them as a
No,
private entity.
because other public entity would not have to do the permit fee for special use, nor would they have to do the building fee. For whatever reason, these nonprofit volunteer fire departments have had one waive, but not the other.
So that's sending a mixed message then, so. Sorry, if you want to talk about precedent.
Well, I just withdraw my entire motion. Y'all figure out what. Y'all figure out what y'all want, how y'all want to do it.
Okay. So now we have no motion. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve their application and also approve the refund of their application fee for the special use program.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? None? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries.
That was a lot harder than it should be.
Absolutely. Make it another one.
Thank you. Hearing this evening. Now we're going to move back to item number 14 on our list, which is for our county attorney, and this involves let's see here, an agreement with the Harris County Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, members of the board. Y'all should have an updated agreement that's been handed out as part of your agenda packet that's different than what was originally published, because we had some edits over the last few days of working with the Chamber. But this comes out of the February 24th, 2022 board planning retreat, where consensus was made to approve the branding campaign for the recreational trail as presented by the Chamber of Commerce. And we created an agreement with the Chamber to memorialize that understanding. And that has been reviewed and approved by both the Chamber and myself. The agreement details that the Chamber will be responsible for ordering, installing, inspecting, repairing, maintaining the signs along the trail at no cost to the county. And those signs consist of parking signs, trailhead signs, directional signs, etc. And the way it works is those signs will be owned by them until if and when they are no longer providing that service, and then the ownership of the signs would revert to the county, or if either side decides to terminate the agreement, they can do so on 30-day written notice, at which time, again, the property or the signs would revert to the ownership of the county to maintain. A motion and vote is needed to approve this agreement.
Well, as a member of the branding committee for this trail with the Chamber, I make a motion that we agree for them to do the branding of the Man War Trail. We've all seen the signs and everything they've proposed, and I believe we've all got a consensus on how they're gonna look. I make that motion for this agreement.
All right. I will second that. Was there any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries.
See, that's how easy it should be.
The next item on our agenda this evening is for the board for consideration of canceling our meeting on July 5th, 2022, September 6th of 2022, and December 20th of 2022. And these would be our regular board meetings. July 5th, of course, is the day after the July 4th holiday. September 6th is the day after the Monday Labor Day holiday. And December 20th, of course, is during the week of Christmas. I would definitely be in favor of canceling at least the July 5th meeting. Any others have any thoughts on the dates?
No, I was gonna say, I think it's July 5th. I would hate to cancel September 6th, December 20th, and all of a sudden something come up and we need to meet and have to backtrack. I would rather get to that point, and then probably we may need to cancel them at that time. But instead of going ahead and canceling them the September 6th, December 20th, I would say we just cancel July 5th.
Fine.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know of anything that would be in the pipeline on those first?
Not for July 5th. September the 6th is questionable, because that deadline's yet to come.
December 20th is the third meeting.
But the deadline for the July,
Those would be, July 6th would be the one from the after.
you will not have anything for July 5th.
Okay, thank you.
But the other two I do not at this time.
I'll make a motion that we cancel the Board of Commissioners meeting for the July 5th meeting.
All right, I will second that. All those in favor? Motion carries. And we have a need for executive session tonight under possible litigation. I don't know if there's any other reason for.
And there's also, for real estate. Again, if the board desires to go into executive session for either or for both of those.
I'll make the motion that we enter into executive session for litigation of possible real estate. All those in favor? Motion carries. Motion to return to our regular.
I'll make a motion to return to our regular meeting.
I'll second that. All those in favor? A motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Motion